Hey guys and welcome back to my channel. This is part 4 of What If Naruto was in RWBY. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and also go and support the author, link in description. Sasuke, I'm here. I brought you some food, and he announced with a girl with a smile, who entered a small room with a tray in her hands. Sasuke, who was lying on a makeshift bed, looked up and thanked her. Thank you, Delilah. You didn't need to bother for me. How could you not? You're my guest, and you're also hurt. The least I can do is take care of you a little, she said, approaching him and leaving the tray on a table. No, I am not your guest. I am a burden for you and everyone, Sasuke lamented, lowering his head in shame. Delilah stroked his hair tenderly. Don't say that, Sasuke. You make me happy with your presence. Plus, you are very brave and strong. Look, I prepared something simple for you, but I hope you like it, she told him, offering him a plate with rice and vegetables. No, I'm sure it's delicious. Everything you do is wonderful, Sasuke replied, looking at her with admiration. Sasuke. Sasuke. Some childish voices were heard approaching the door. They were 3 children about 10 years old, who ran in and surrounded Sasuke. Sasuke, I need your help. I can't solve this math problem, said one, showing him a paper with numbers and signs. No, Sasuke, help me. I have to do this science work and I don't know anything, said another, showing him a book with drawings of plants and animals. No, please, Sasuke, listen to me. I have to practice this dance for the town festival and I can't do it, said the third, making some clumsy steps. Guys, Sasuke said, trying to calm them down. I'm going to help you all, but give me a moment. I have to eat something first, okay? Yes, Sasuke is right. He has to eat well to regain his strength. Then he will help you with whatever you need, said Delilah, supporting Sasuke. It's okay, the children said with resignation. Good boys, Sasuke said, smiling at them and ruffling their hair. I love you very much, and I will always help you. But now, go back to your rooms and wait a little. No, we want to stay here with you, said the children, hugging him. You know, Delilah said, looking at him proudly. You are very good at these things. You are very intelligent, even if you don't believe it. You help the people of this town a lot. Haha, yeah, it's funny. I don't know how I know all this stuff. I just know it, Sasuke said, shrugging. And have you remembered anything from your past? Delilah asked him, curiously. No, Sasuke said, frowning. I still don't remember who I am, or where I come from. It's very confusing. I see red eyes, a blinding light, silhouettes of people. But not their faces. A giant talking toad, and a valley with 2 statues. I'm sorry, he said, apologizing. Delilah laughed hearing Sasuke. A giant talking toad. Wow, that's weird, she said, mocking a little. But don't worry, Sasuke. Maybe one day you'll remember everything that happened to you. And if not, that's okay. Here you have a new family that loves and appreciates you. So stop apologizing and eat some, he said, bringing a spoonful of rice to her mouth. Thank you, Delilah. You are very kind to me, Sasuke said, accepting the food. He was grateful to her for everything she had done for him since he found him lost in the woods. Sasuke began to eat, while the children looked at him with admiration and Delilah with affection. Sasuke felt happy, even though he didn't remember anything about his previous life. Maybe, in that small town, he had found a new home. Delilah got up and went to see the other children who were playing outside. She noticed that Crystal's shoes were torn. Crystal, your shoes broke, she said, pointing to them. Yes, I'm sorry, Miss Delilah. They were already very worn out, Crystal said, embarrassed. Oh, poor thing. We have to buy you some more, but you'll have to wait a little. The truth is that we're short of money, Delilah said, pitying her. Don't worry, Miss Delilah. I'll wait. I'll wear them until they can't take it anymore. I'll glue them on, Crystal said, resigned. Then she, shyly, added, but, if I could ask for something, I don't know if I can. But I would like my shoes to be red, like the ones I saw in one of those magazines. So you want red shoes? Delilah said, surprised. I think it will be a little difficult, but I promise you that I will do my best to get them, Delilah said, with a smile. Okay, thank you, Miss Delilah, Crystal said, excited. You're welcome, Crystal. You're a very good girl, Delilah said, hugging her. Then, she turned to the other children. Come on, kids. Don't stay here. Go play. But we want to stay with Sasuke, the children said, protesting. No, Sasuke needs to rest. There will be time to be with him, Delilah said firmly. It's okay, Miss Delilah, the children said, obeying. They said goodbye to Sasuke and left. Delilah sighed. This was more complicated than it seemed. She not only had to take care of Sasuke and the children, but also get money to buy food, clothes and medicine. The donations they received were scarce and not enough for everything. Is something wrong, Delilah? Sasuke asked her, noticing her concern. Yes, Sasuke. The truth is that we don't have much money and things are difficult. I don't know what we are going to do, Delilah said, sadly. The truth is that I would like to buy those red shoes for Crystal. She deserves it. She is a very sweet and hardworking girl. But I don't know if I can. Sasuke felt a lump in his throat. He wanted to help Delilah, but he didn't know how. Then, he had a gesture of affection. He took Delilah's hand and squeezed it tightly. Calm down, Delilah. I know things will get better. You are an incredible woman. You never give up because of the little I have seen. And I know you will get ahead, Sasuke said, trying to comfort her. Delilah smiled and wiped a traitorous tear from her cheek. I hope so, Sasuke. I really hope so, Delilah said, grateful. Sasuke stared at her. There was something about her that attracted him. She was beautiful, kind and brave. He wondered if she had ever had someone like that in her life. But she couldn't remember anything. Sasuke. Mr. Sasuke. Sir, said the voice. Sasuke was brought out of his thoughts by a voice calling out to him. Huh, Sasuke said, waking up. I've been calling you for a while, okay. The voice said. Sasuke realized that he was in front of a clothing store. It was one of his coworkers. Yes, I'm sorry. I just thought those shoes were very pretty, Sasuke said, pointing to some red shoes in the window. Ah, I see. It seems like you liked those red shoes. Are you planning to buy them? Said the classmate, curiously. Yes, I'll buy them. But now we're in the middle of work. And what's the situation? Sasuke said, changing the subject. None, sir. I'm just informing you that everything is going according to plan and we are withdrawing. Roman is waiting for you at the base, said the companion, respectfully. Understood. Guide me then, Sasuke said, following him. Sasuke walked away from the store, but not before taking one last look at the red shoes. Sasuke and the partner were walking towards the base together. It was one of the headquarters of the White Fang, an organization that fought for the rights of fawns. And how have you been? Sasuke asked his companion, feigning interest. Sir, I think. No, said the companion, nervous. Don't worry, we're talking here. Tell me, what's your name? Sasuke insisted, kindly. My name is Paul, sir, said the companion, timidly. And tell me your story, Paul. Why did you join the White Fang? Sasuke asked him, curiously. Well, I joined the White Fang because I have a family to support, and getting a job in my condition is very difficult, Paul said, sadly. So you joined because it is difficult to find a job, and if you find one, it is poorly paid, right? Sasuke said, understandingly. And tell me, how much do they pay you to do this? Actually, they don't pay me anything, sir. It's an organization that seeks change, Paul said, proudly. So you're just a protester, you don't get paid to do this. So, you shouldn't do it. You know what? Let's do something, Sasuke said, with a smile. What, sir? Said Paul, with surprise. It must be very hard for you and your family, Sasuke said, with false compassion. Have this then, it may not help the situation much, but at least it can ease the noose around one's neck a little, right? Sasuke said, taking out a packet of 2,000 lean bills. This is for you, go with your family and have a good time. Sir, I can't accept this, said Paul, in amazement. Accept it, please. But one thing, don't tell anyone. We don't want everyone to find out that I gave money to a single member of the White Fang. It could cause discord, Sasuke said, slyly. No, sir, I won't tell anyone, said Paul, gratefully. Sasuke touched Paul's shoulder. Very well, Paul, you're a good boy. I want you to do something for me, Sasuke said, seriously. Whatever, sir, said Paul, loyally. I want to know who is organizing all this. I mean, you are part of this organization, but there is always a leader. I should talk to him. Even though you work for him, he is not making you a profit and that is very bad, Sasuke said, with false concern. Sir. Paul said, afraid. Tell me, Paul, I'll talk to him. I won't say it was you, don't worry. My only motive is to help my fellow human beings. You're having a very bad time and others must go through the same situation, right? Sasuke said. Yes, sir, said Paul, confidently. Those people who have no other option are surely here to make a change. But they don't receive anything to help them financially. So, I will talk to him and make sure that you have at least a small remuneration, so that this doesn't happen. Be in vain, Sasuke said, deceitfully. Yes, sir, said Paul, with enthusiasm. Very well, Paul, so tell me about that leader, Sasuke said, with interest. His name is Adam, sir. Sasuke smiled. He had gotten what he wanted. He now knew who the leader of the White Fang was. He had to make these moves because Roman wouldn't tell him anything. Slash dash slash. Naruto. Please, Naruto, Naruto, please. Nora exclaimed while shaking Naruto by the shoulders. Nora, leaving me alone, shaking me is not going to solve anything for you, Naruto responded with annoyance. Please, Naruto, I need more. Nora insisted with pleading eyes. Can anyone give me a hand here? Naruto asked, looking around, seeking the support of his team, RWBY, and Yang. Sorry, Naruto, but that's your problem, Ren said with a shrug. Please, Naruto, give me more cartridges. Nora begged in an anguished voice. It's not my fault you spent them all, Naruto replied. I told you to use them sparingly. But, stammered Nora. Nora, please be reasonable. I didn't refuse to do more to you, I just told you that you had to wait a little, Naruto explained patiently. But they are so incredible, Nora exclaimed with admiration. Don't you have any saved there? I already told you, Nora, I gave them all to you. It's not my fault that the others didn't want them and gave them to you. Those cartridges were one of a kind, it will take me a while to make more, said Naruto. Resignedly. But please, Naruto, hurry up. Nora implored like a capricious child. The process to make that type of cartridge requires weeks of preparation, Naruto said seriously. But do it faster, Nora demanded impatiently. Okay, I'll wait faster. Were they really that amazing? Yang asked curiously, remembering the cartridges Naruto had offered them. They had not accepted them and had given them all to Nora, without knowing the potential they had. Yes, they were amazing, Nora said enthusiastically. You should have seen them, they were like. Boom. Bang. Everything was an explosion of colors and effects. Nora jumped for joy as she imitated the sounds of the cartridges. Yes, it's all very funny, Ren said sarcastically. You don't know how many times I was about to die because of your cartridges, Nora. Don't be dramatic, Ren said Naruto. Your life was in danger, yes, but you weren't close to dying. I can assure you. Naruto winked at Ren. Yes, that comforts me a lot, Naruto. Thank you, Ren said. But seriously, Naruto, how did you do that? Pira asked, impressed by Naruto's cartridges. Compressing dust crystals and releasing a huge amount of energy in a single shot is mind-blowing. I was working on it for a couple of years, Naruto said, making up a story to hide his true origin. It was a personal project that occurred to me one day. The redhead smiled proudly. You're incredible, Naruto. I never thought that was possible, much less that you could compress so much energy into a single object. You would be surprised at what is possible in this world, Pira. I myself have done many things that should have killed me a long time ago, Naruto said with a mischievous smile. Naruto. Pira shouted, worried for her friend. Don't worry, Pira. Now I'm more careful than before, I've matured a little. Being close to death changes you, I tell you. If I had a coin for every time death was about to take me, I would have 3. It's not much, but it's rare that it happens to me 3 times, Naruto said humorously. Everyone stared at Naruto like he was crazy. Naruto, what the hell did you get yourself into to come close to death 3 times? Yang asked, a little worried about her friend's mental health. I'm not going to tell those stories for obvious reasons, but I'll just say that one of those times had to do with the search for a woman with great personalities, Naruto said mischievously. It sounds like you were looking for women to sleep with, Pira said disapprovingly. No, it wasn't like that, please. I don't know what kind of image you guys have of me, Naruto said indignantly. I don't understand how you can be so smart to make those cartridges, but so blind to not see what you do to girls, Ren said in disbelief. I don't provoke anything, really. I'm just nice to them. Is it a crime to be nice to people? Naruto said innocently. Ren sighed at his leader's naivety. It's a good thing we're done with the intensive training course you imposed on us. I was about to leave this institution, Ren said tiredly. Come on, Rini, it wasn't that big of a deal, said Nora, hugging her friend. We have learned a lot, I don't deny that, Ren said honestly. And why didn't you invite us, Naruto? An angry RWBY shouted, interrupting the conversation. I only invited Yang, because it seemed to me that she was the only one who wanted to do something other than classes, but she didn't come. I sent her a letter, didn't you read it? Naruto said, looking at Yang. A letter, Naruto. What century do you live in? RWBY said in disbelief. I'm a gentleman, RWBY. I like to do things with style, Naruto said proudly. Naruto. No one in their right mind would think that that letter was an invitation to train, RWBY said in amazement. What's wrong? Naruto said with confusion. Naruto. Look at this, Yang said, taking out a crumpled sheet of paper from her pocket and reading it aloud. Open double angle bracket greetings, Miss Flaming Eyes. I have the honor of having met the most beautiful woman in this world, and I can say that heaven was never so close to me until I came to this earth. It would be a great pleasure if you please give me a little of your time, tomorrow at 6 in the morning in the Emerald Forest. I have something very important to tell you, and I hope that you will give me all your heart and accept everything I offer you and not reject me. Beautiful woman with blonde hair, a radiant smile and eyes that illuminate even the darkest night, close double angle bracket. Quote. See, you think this is a damn invitation to train. Yang said indignantly. I was praising you, what's wrong with that? The first step for a person to accept something from you is to praise them. And I think I was very polite. I don't understand what the problem is, Naruto said sincerely. Are you an idiot? You can't expect me to read this letter and not think that you're proposing to me on a date, Yang said, blushing. Really? I didn't have those intentions, I'm sorry. You know I would never make you feel uncomfortable. Why do you keep the letter? Naruto said curiously. It's just that. It's for nothing. Stupid. Yang said and quickly put the letter in her pocket. Well, guys, what do we have to do now? Said Naruto, changing the subject. We have to go to the library. Weiss and Blake are waiting for us because the final exams start tomorrow, said Nora. And after that we have the holidays, but it's only 2 weeks. What bad luck. Shit. Nora said with disappointment. That is no way for a lady to speak, Naruto said reproachfully. Suck my foot, Uzumaki, Nora said disdainfully. Well, if you want, Naruto said mischievously. Seeing a woman shed tears has always made me sad, but now I feel a strange mixture of guilt and pleasure when watching her. I don't know how to describe this contradictory feeling. You should be proud of yourself. You have achieved what few men can. Make a woman cry and enjoy it. You are despicable, said the QB. Shut up, Kurama, you have no idea what I feel, Naruto responded mentally. Naruto and his friends had arrived at the library with the intention of preparing for the final exams, although some had other priorities. Blake and Weiss were already there, waiting for them. They weren't paying attention to them. It was difficult to compete with a certain orange book that Naruto had written and published. As soon as they entered, Yang took the book out of her backpack and showed it to Weiss with a sly smile. He sidled up to her and whispered something in her ear that made Weiss blush. Weiss nodded and they sat together at a secluded table. Yang opened the book halfway and they began to read it eagerly. Apparently they were going through a very interesting part of the story, one of those that made the heart race and the cheeks burn. The two had become reading friends, sharing their impressions and emotions about the book. Naruto was speechless when he saw them. He never thought that his book would be so successful among girls. But that was not all. Shortly after, more girls approached who also had the same book in their hands. Some of them were known to Naruto, others were not. They began to gather around Yang and Weiss, forming a sort of reading dome. And to Naruto's surprise, among them was Pyra. Naruto felt his mouth go dry when he saw her. How is it possible that she also read her book? By Kami, this is not possible, Naruto thought. That explains the moaning I've heard lately. Ha ha ha, Kurama mocked. I can't believe it. I don't know if I'll be able to look her in the eyes again, Naruto said embarrassed. Naruto had no idea what part of the book the girls were going through, but it must have been one of the more emotional ones, because some of them were sobbing or sighing. Naruto felt proud that he had managed to move them with his words. After all, he was the best writer in the world, or at least that's what he believed. He mentally patted himself on the back, congratulating himself on his talent. I'm impressive, Naruto thought. I can't believe I'm so impressive. Well, actually yes, I shouldn't be surprised. Shut up, Naruto. Seriously, you should be more humble, Kurama told him annoyed. And why should I? If the book was already good in itself, but I made it unforgettable, Naruto said arrogantly. No, I made it unforgettable. Don't you remember that I helped you write some scenes? Kurama told him offended. Yes, details. Let's say it was a 70-30, friend. Naruto told him conciliatorily. Okay, Kurama said resignedly. You're lucky I didn't charge you. Anyway, I don't need money at all. What would you use it for? I don't know. Why would you use money if you, I don't know, had a human body? Women and alcohol. I always wondered what it would feel like. Yes, Naruto nodded hesitantly. I've never experienced that sex thing. I've never even kissed anyone, and alcohol. Either. I've never tried it. You know, I promised myself I'd wait until I was 20. To drink. Why? What's the point? I mean, you could drink right now and no one would know. It's a promise I made to myself. It's not a big deal. Come on, kid, relax a little, enjoy life, you're too young to be so serious. Now, but tell me something, you who know so much about my clan and my history, how long did those guys live? You told me that they had great longevity, but how many years are we talking about? Well, if you didn't have me inside you, you would probably live to be about 200 years old. What? Seriously? Yes, I assure you, the Uzumakis were very long-lived, they were called the tribe of the immortals. Wow. That's good. And how does having you reduce my life? Well, because your body is supporting my presence and all my power, that means a lot of wear and tear on you, so you will live about 100 years. 100 years. Not bad, Naruto said impressed. But I think you'll live a little longer than normal, actually. I don't know how to explain it to you, but you're something special, so to speak. I feel something familiar about you that I haven't felt in a long time. I don't know how to express it, I know you have something in there, something nostalgic. Are you okay? Well, it doesn't matter, I still have to master the Hiraishin no Jutsu. Ha 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 ha. Kurama started laughing as if he had heard the best joke in the world. Yes, of course. Bye Kami. That meeting with your father was incredible. If I had had popcorn I would have seen the best drama scene of my life, that is cinema. Shut up, Kurama. How funny. You insulted him and the guy barely dared to reply to you. He felt so guilty for everything that happened. The only thing he could do was give you some advice in his famous jutsu. That's more than I expected. I wish my mother had been there instead of my father, Naruto sighed sadly. And suddenly, louder cries were heard than there had been before. Something exciting is coming, Kurama said with a malicious smile. Weiss, Yang spoke. Read that part out loud, please. I don't think I can, Yang, Weiss replied. Come on, do it, exclaimed all the girls who were in the group. This is going to be good, Naruto thought. What part is it? Open double angle bracket. This is the end. Finally, I never thanked you, Haku. Forgive me for that. Applause resounded everywhere. The battle had finally ended and the town had been liberated, all thanks to the help of the most unexpected, a simple hitman. Kasumo slowly walked towards Zabuza's body, who was lying on the ground, bleeding from numerous wounds. It seems like it's the end, he said hoarsely. Yes, Kasumo agreed. Although his response was cold, he felt great pain in his heart. He could not bear to watch that scene any longer, without his voice breaking. I want to ask you a favor, Zabuza said with difficulty. What do you want? Kasumo asked. Take me to her. Before I leave I need to see her one last time. Zabuza's breathing was getting weaker. He knew he had little time left and he had to hurry. It's okay. Kasumo accepted, regretfully. Even though Zabuza was his rival, they felt a kind of connection beyond words. He removed all the weapons that were stuck in Zabuza's body and picked him up in his arms, walking carefully towards Haku. At that moment snow began to fall, but that was impossible at that time of year. It was a sad and beautiful scene at the same time. Is that you, Haku? Are those your tears? Zabuza began to rave. When they reached Haku, Kasumo placed Zabuza's body next to hers. Thank you, Kasumo, Zabuza murmured. And he took a few steps away to leave them alone, so Zabuza could say goodbye. The demon of the mist looked longingly at his great life partner, and although he never told her, he loved her and had fallen in love with her, but he never had the courage to tell her, because he knew that she deserved better than him. Could offer her, he never felt worthy of her. You were always by my side, the least I can do is be with you until the end, Zabuza said tenderly. With the last breath he had left, Zabuza brought his hand closer to Haku's cheek. He wanted to feel her skin and her warmth one last time, before leaving for the hell where he belonged. I know it can't be. But I wish I could go where you're going. How I would like to accompany you. Haku, Zabuza whispered. With those last words the mist demon expired and died next to his beloved, Haku, who had died a long time ago, but the pain was still noticeable on his face and a tear rolled down his cheek. Close double angle bracket. Boo-ah. Boo-ah, boo-ah. Sniff sniff. The crying of all those girls was heard throughout the library. Naruto worried that the librarian would throw them out, but curiously she was also there. Weiss with tears in her eyes closed the book and began to wipe away the tears. That's enough for today, I can't continue reading. And so that little group separated and Piro returned to her respective seat next to Nora and Ren. I really have surpassed myself, Naruto said in a low voice so that no one could hear him. Blake of course heard him because she was next to him. Why did you have to kill Haku? Blake asked reproachfully. Naruto simply sighed and gave a sad look, as if remembering something. It was inevitable, Naruto replied. Yes, it was inevitable, thought Naruto. The truth is that I had to modify and change some things from Jiraiya's book. I added other stories and adapted many of my experiences there, like the story of Zabuza and Haku. Now I'm working on another volume of this book. In fact, I already finished it. I don't know if you would have the opportunity to review it, Naruto said to Blake. Sure, Naruto, Blake said enthusiastically. And what is this book about, Naruto? Blake asked with curiosity evident in her voice. Well, it's about a world of demons and demon hunters, and in that world there are specialized elites to hunt those demons. We will focus on Rengoku, one of the pillars of that elite, and I'm sure you'll like the ending, he said Naruto with a touch of mischief. The premise is interesting. Like the other book, I know this one will be incredible. I'm looking forward to it, Blake said. Well, get ready to cry more, because this ending is more tragic than the last one, Naruto said with an evil smile. What? Blake said in horror. Just kidding, Naruto said laughing. Or maybe not, you'll have to read it to find out, Naruto told him, winking. You're evil, Naruto, Blake said, pretending to be upset, but in reality she was intrigued by Naruto's new book. Thanks for the compliments, it's funny how fun it is to talk to you. Blake, and she gave him a smile, one of the few she gave, and frankly Naruto thought it was adorable. Yes, Naruto, it's good to have the same tastes. That's when everything got complicated, Naruto interrupted her. No, that's where you're wrong, said Naruto. I write and you read, you're the fan, I'm the writer, it's very different. How is that different? Blake asked. It is evident that I don't have to like something to be able to write about it, I just have to have the knowledge and thus be able to create something, but if you have experience it is much better, but I don't have it in that area, said Naruto. Don't be stupid, no one would write something so detailed if they didn't have an interest in this, obviously you did your research, either on the internet or a magazine or most likely, you have experienced it yourself, Blake said. You're wrong, Blake, don't put me in the same category as you, said Naruto in a sing-song way, ha ha ha, perverted little Blake, don't confuse me, I may seem a little naughty but in reality I have very little experience. Naruto said. Shut up, Blake said with a hint of sarcasm, you're obviously lying, someone like you should have a lot of experience, Blake said. Someone like me? Naruto asked doubtfully but he played it down, well, it doesn't matter, seriously Blake, I have no experience in any of this, said Naruto. And how did you write something like that? Blake asked. I researched. Theoretical knowledge, Naruto said. Really? Blake said surprised. It's really incredible that you did it with only theoretical information. You're a born writer, why didn't you dedicate yourself to this? Blake asked. It's not my thing, Naruto said. Then why did you write it? Blake asked. For money, Naruto said. Those words resonated in Blake's mind. Money, right, the masked man said the same thing. That he did this for money, and hearing it from Naruto's lips made her remember. That masked man was exactly the same as Naruto. The same voice and the same way of fighting. Sometimes Blake thought that Naruto was that masked man. But it was impossible, everyone confirmed that Naruto stayed in Beacon that day. Naruto asked why she insisted on that topic, so she decided to leave it for the moment, but the question it ate at his mind. That masked man had the same voice as his friend and fought exactly the same. Blake, are you okay? Naruto asked his partner, breaking her out of her thoughts. She smiled at him to reassure him. Yes, I'm fine, I was just thinking about something, Blake replied. If you have something that worries you, you can tell me, Naruto offered. How much do you talk about? Weiss asked the two, their whispers don't hide the fact that they are talking. It's nothing, Weiss, don't worry, Naruto told her with a smile. Seriously, what are you talking about? Weiss insisted. Well, if you want to know so much, Naruto got up from his seat and sat next to the white-haired girl. Blake and I are betting, Naruto told him. What kind of bet? RWBY asked innocently. Well, she bet that since I'm the smartest in the entire academy, I would have the best grades in the exams, Naruto explained. But I bet on you, Weiss, Naruto told her. Me? Weiss asked surprised. You're confused, Naruto told her and took Weiss's left hand with both hands, stroking it with his thumbs. I bet on you, Naruto repeated. Come on, Naruto, you know very well that I won't be able to surpass you in the exams, Weiss told him. Don't be so modest, you are so intelligent, so impressive in everything you do, you can easily surpass me, Naruto told her. Weiss blushed a little, and it's no big deal, Weiss told her. How is it not a big deal, Miss Schnee? Just for giving me one of those smiles that I love so much I would give you the whole world, plus I have seen how intelligent you are. I know it firsthand, you are the only one who can stand up to me, I know you well, you're brave and sweet, you're incredibly kind and selfless, Naruto told her. I think you're confusing me with someone else, Naruto. Weiss lowered her head a little and frowned. I'm not brave, nor selfless, I'm just a spoiled girl, Weiss told him. Naruto gently held her hand and caressed her cheek tenderly, smiling sweetly at her. You are cold and distant, but your eyes are sweet, so full of sadness and resignation, but also purity and kindness, Naruto told him. Weiss was speechless, she didn't know how to respond to Naruto's words, she felt flattered but also confused, she didn't understand why Naruto said those things to her, did he have any feelings for her? Or was it just a bad joke? Weiss didn't know what to think, she only knew that her heart was racing and her face was heating up. Blake, RWBY and the others watched the scene in amazement, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. What is Naruto doing? Blake asked in disbelief. He's reciting a poem he found on the internet, RWBY responded with a nervous giggle. A poem, Blake repeated sarcastically. And why are you telling Weiss? I understand he lost a bet with Cardin, RWBY explained. Naruto, Weiss whispered, looking into his eyes, I think you're confusing me again. Naruto smiled and spoke again. With so many mysteries on your back, you hide behind a mask, which you only use to protect the beauty that is in your being. Nah, Naruto. At this point, Weiss was already red as a tomato from the blonde's words. Echo of past lives, which are reflected in your gaze, wounds that were recorded in the depths of your soul. Marks that caused you pain, that you keep inside, that's why you act like this, I knew it since I saw you. You sought as refuge, a piece of cold ice, which would keep you away from the pain. This fool has no idea what he's doing, right? Ren said with concern. No, poor wretch, Biome, I'm afraid of his future, Nora said with compassion. I'm afraid they'll take his hands off, Pyrrha said with a frown, watching Naruto flirt with Weiss. Calm down, said RWBY, calm down Pyrrha, he doesn't do it with bad intentions. Pyrrha took a deep breath and sighed. Unfortunately he does. //. In the end he couldn't surpass you, Naruto, Yang spoke with amusement. Come on, Yang, stop, Naruto said with a smile. Second place isn't that bad, in fact it's the closest anyone could have come to me. She's closer than I thought. Naruto grabbed Weiss' neck and hugged her. Isn't that true, buddy? And Naruto, you shouldn't be so close. Weiss, don't be shy, I do this all the time, remember, when we're alone. Weiss. Yang was having fun. What are you talking about? It's not what it seems. You hurt me, Weiss. How is it not true that we run away when no one is watching? Naruto. Pyrrha shouted near them. Yes, we go out to study, guys. Maybe you don't appreciate studying very much, but we have this type of coexistence and we escape to be able to study. Ah, you were talking about that, Pyrrha said. Too bad, Weiss, you couldn't catch up with Naruto, Yang said with a mocking laugh. Don't be mean, Yang, Naruto responded with a knowing smile. There's nothing wrong with coming second, in fact, it's the best result anyone could have gotten in front of me. She was very close to achieving it, more than what I expected. Naruto put his arm around Weiss's neck and pulled her towards him. Isn't that right, friend? And Naruto, let go of me, you're invading my personal space. Weiss, don't be nervous, this is normal between us, don't you remember? When we are alone. Weiss. Yang laughed. What's that saying? It's not what you think. You disappoint me, Weiss. How is it not true that we run away together when no one is looking? Naruto. Pyrrha exclaimed, approaching them. Yes, we're going to study, guys. I know that you don't give much importance to studies, but we have a good relationship and we're going to review the material. Yes, of course, to study, Pyrrha said sarcastically. Well yes, the truth is that studying has helped us a lot, look how close Weiss was to beating me. Ah, you got 2 points ahead of me, Weiss said. That's very little, almost a tie. But I also got good grades, but you are a genius, look here. Then Weiss took the report card from Naruto and showed it to the others, where it was seen that all of his grades were perfect. Well, we don't have to think about it any further, Weiss. You're very intelligent and that's what matters, I give you my approval, and that's already a great compliment. Don't be too clever, Naruto, it doesn't look good on you. Okay, I'm sorry, Naruto said with an innocent smile. And changing the subject, what are your plans for this vacation? We're heading to Patch to visit our father, Yang announced with a smile. Unfortunately, I cannot return to Atlas, Weiss confessed with a sigh. Therefore, Yang has invited me to his home, I will spend those days with them. I think it's an excellent idea, Naruto responded approvingly. And you, Blake, what are your plans? I've decided to stay in Beacon, Blake said calmly. Oh, Blake, you should join us, RWBY insisted enthusiastically. You wouldn't be any bother. Thank you, RWBY, but I prefer not to impose, Blake declined, offering a tight smile. Maybe another time, he added, hoping to soften the rejection. So, what about you guys? Naruto asked, addressing his team. We have nowhere to go, Ren admitted with a neutral expression. Nora and I have no family or a place to call home, so we'll stay here in Beacon. I understand, Naruto nodded, before addressing Pyrrha. And you, Pyrrha, what plans do you have? I had thought about visiting my mother. She's a little far away, but I'll be able to spend at least a few days with her, Pyrrha shared with a distant look. I see. Well, guys, since you seem to be free, I have some activities in mind that we could do together, Naruto proposed with a mischievous smile. Really? Ren asked, unable to hide his concern. He had reasons to be. Naruto's activities were notorious for being extremely challenging and often bordering on dangerous. Absolutely. It will be tremendously fun. A recreational and educational experience, but above all, truly crazy. Who's in? Naruto exclaimed, his enthusiasm was contagious. Me, Nora screamed jumping, her energy was unstoppable. That's the attitude I like, Nora. That's why I appreciate you so much. You're always ready for action, Naruto praised, with a wide smile. Naruto, I've changed my mind. I don't need to go see my mother, so, maybe I could, Pyrrha started to say, hesitating a little. Are you sure, Pyrrha? Wouldn't you rather spend time with your family? Naruto asked, showing a hint of concern. She will understand. The truth is that I would like to spend more time with all of you, Pyrrha confessed, her decision was made. Then it's a fact, Naruto said, his smile warm and welcoming. You are more than welcome to join us. Guys, get ready for the adventure. He exclaimed, and with an expansive gesture, he gathered everyone in a group hug. Let's embark on an epic adventure. He proclaimed enthusiastically. Yes, they responded in unison, although with different degrees of emotion and reserve. With the promise of an adventure ahead, the group prepared for the unknown. What they did know was that, with Naruto at the helm, the experience promised to be unforgettable, full of laughter, learning, and, without a doubt, a good dose of madness. Hey, Ren called to Naruto curiously. Yes, what's wrong? Naruto responded, turning to him. When you mentioned that it would be a group activity, I didn't imagine that the Cardinal team would also be here, Ren commented, an eyebrow raised in surprise. Yes, I said it would be a group activity. Not just for us, but for everyone. I didn't invite Team RWBY because they already had plans, and Team Cardinal. Well, they invited themselves, Naruto explained with a resigned smile. He forced us. Cardin interrupted, crossing his arms. Yes, I don't deny it, Naruto admitted with a laugh. I was planning to go on a date with a girl. Dove exclaimed, visibly frustrated. Sure, but maybe it's better this way. You save yourself the disappointment. That girl is not what she seems, said Naruto, with a mischievous smile. What do you mean? Dove asked, confused. Naruto stared at him, his smile widening even more. What do you mean? Dove repeated slowly, and then, as if a switch flipped, his face paled. Oh, Biome. I'm sorry, friend, Naruto said, his tone sincere. As for the others, I know they had other plans, but honestly, I don't care. They're going to enjoy this, whether they like it or not. Also, Nora chimed in, how did you get an airship? I rented it, obviously, Naruto replied nonchalantly. But how? This must have cost you a fortune. It's a damn airship, Nora exclaimed, her eyes almost popping out of their sockets. Yes, and the pilot is private, Naruto added, as if talking about the weather. Where did you get that money? Pyrrha asked, her concern evident. Believe me, you don't want to know the origin of that money, Naruto said, avoiding her gaze. Tell us, Naruto, you haven't done something dangerous, have you? Pyrrha asked, her tone now more insistent. Okay, guys, Naruto crouched down and looked everyone in the eye. The truth is that I am a hitman, they pay me to kill people, he said with such seriousness that everyone remained silent. Really, Naruto? Russell asked, his voice trembling. Naruto smiled evilly. No, ha, of course not. But don't worry, I'll tell you everything later, not now. Are you going to tell us, Naruto? Pyrrha insisted. Of course, I promised there would be no more secrets between us, didn't I? Yes, you promised, and I know you wouldn't break a promise, Pyrrha said, her trust in him clear. Of course not. I wouldn't break a promise, especially if I made it to you, Naruto stated, his tone soft and sincere. Thank you, Naruto, Pyrrha smiled, a soft blush coloring her cheeks. Naruto pressed a button to talk to the pilot. Mr. Christian, how is the weather out there? Everything is fine, Mr. Uzumaki. The sun is shining brightly. Why don't you see it through the window? The pilot responded with humor. I just wanted to chat with you a little. How long until we get to the meeting point? Naruto asked. It won't be long, Mr. Uzumaki. I hope you enjoy the trip, said the pilot. Yes, and don't forget what we agreed, Naruto reminded. Of course, I will pick you up at the extraction point on the 5th day of the 2nd week and from there you will go directly to Beacon, the pilot confirmed. Exactly, thank you, Naruto concluded. Dove muttered to himself, why did this happen to me? I kissed her so many times. Oh, believe me, life is full of disappointments. Get used to it, Naruto said with a laugh. I don't tell it often, but my first kiss wasn't what I expected either. Really? Dove asked, intrigued. Yes, at the academy, there was someone I really couldn't stand. I hated him with all my soul at that moment. And well, I confronted him that day. It was careless, but I didn't feel when someone pushed me from behind and I ended up kissing him. Naruto recounted his experience, and laughter echoed through the group. Can you believe it, friends? That was my debut in romance. So traumatic that I still shudder when I remember it. But it is those moments that define us. They toughen us and, most crucially, they remind us that there will always be a new opportunity to find that unique person. Trust me, I often find myself dreaming about it, about finding my ideal partner. Naruto reflected, his gaze lost in the vast sky that stretched beyond the window. Are you serious? Cardin questioned, with a mixture of astonishment and skepticism. Totally. I aspire to have a refuge by the sea, to wake up every dawn with the sweet perfume of my life partner, to see our children grow up and reach old age together, our hands intertwined. I dream of dedicating melodies to her daily, declaring my love to her. Unconditional love and recognizing the fortune of sharing it. That is the dream I harbor, dear friends, Naruto revealed, his tone full of hope and longing. Even the pilot, captured by the sincerity of the conversation, let out a sigh. That ideal is mine too, Don Uzumaki. The life of an aviator does not have the charm that many believe, he expressed, his voice tinged with a desire for something more than the heights he dominated. Time was passing serenely, and the atmosphere between the two teams had changed drastically. The previous enmity had dissipated, thanks to Naruto's conciliatory intervention with Cardin. In the midst of a lively and surprisingly enjoyable conversation, Naruto stood up with an excited gleam in his eyes. Oh, guys, before we get to the meeting point, there's something you need to see, Naruto exclaimed, addressing Christian. Please, he opens the rear hatch of the aircraft. Understood, Mr. Uzumaki, Christian responded with an affirmative gesture, and proceeded to open the rear hatch, revealing to everyone. A forest. Look, guys, this forest is something out of the ordinary, Naruto announced with a smile. Cardin, with his typical mocking attitude, replied, yes, of course, a forest like any other. And he added sarcastically, what's so special about this bunch of trees? Naruto, without losing his enthusiasm, shared, this place is imbued with magic. There is a legend that speaks of a lake hidden in this forest. Those who find it can make a wish, but there is an unexpected twist. The wish is not fulfilled. Nora, confused, intervened. So, why the hell do they give you a wish if it's not going to come true? Therein lies the beauty of the story, Naruto explained with a dreamy look. The wish you make is not fulfilled because it is not what you really need. Instead, the lake grants your heart's desire, what you need most, even if you are not aware of it. Nora, moved by the narrative, exclaimed, wow, what a moving story. Meanwhile, she cast a meaningful glance towards Ren. There are more fascinating details about the legend, but I will tell you about them later. For now, enjoy the view of this legendary forest. I once came here in search of that lake, Naruto confessed, lost in his memories. Oh really? Truss asked, a tone of disbelief mixed with admiration. Yes, archaeology is one of my great passions, Naruto admitted, sparking a collective understanding. That explains your good relationship with Professor Oobleck, Cardin commented, making a connection. Dr. Bartholomew Oobleck, don't forget the title, Naruto corrected with an indulgent smile. While everyone was distracted, Naruto crept away and positioned himself behind the group. Have you seen enough? Naruto asked, with a mischievous smile. Yes, there is nothing impressive here, not even that lake exists, Nora complained, not suspecting what was to come. Who knows? Naruto murmured, and with a slow but sure movement, he raised his hands and announced. Legend also says that if you stare at this place for too long, you could fall into the abyss. With a thunderous cry, ha ha ha, Naruto shocked everyone, and in an instant, they found themselves plummeting towards the ground, their screams echoing through the air. You are completely crazy, Naruto. Cardin exclaimed, his voice shaking with anger. Calm down, friends, they are alive. Naruto responded with a calmness that contrasted with the tension of the moment. No, but we could be dead. You idiot, we didn't have parachutes or weapons. How the hell did we? Calm down, Cardin, Naruto intervened, his voice still calm in the face of Cardin's fury and the rest's concern. I installed a net between the trees, they wouldn't have gotten hurt. Plus, they have aura. What if we had fallen somewhere else? Doubt was evident in the voice of one of them. Don't worry, I calculated everything meticulously. It was impossible for them to fall anywhere else. The argument was interrupted when Naruto threw a small box to the ground. Everyone watched with curiosity as Nora asked. What's that? These are chocolates. Divide them, there are 4 for each of you. Enjoy them, guys. Uncertainty was still in the air when Ren, with a tone that denoted his fear of the answer, asked, and why are we here? Naruto smiled widely, a smile that dripped with mockery and cunning, but above all, cruelty. I brought you here for recreational, educational and, above all, brutal activities. You lied to us, Naruto. Nora accused, her voice thick with fury. I never lied to you, Naruto replied firmly. You said this would be fun. Nora protested, raising her voice. Calm down, Nora. I said it would be fun, and it will be. I also mentioned that it would be recreational and brutal. You are here to face one of the many hypothetical situations I have prepared for you. So pay attention. The group opted for silence, already tired of Naruto's surprises, allowing him to continue. Imagine this situation. A couple of hunters face a large swarm of Grimm and barely manage to escape with their lives, losing their weapons and supplies. They become stranded in a forest, and their only way out is to climb that mountain. Naruto pointed with his finger at an imposing mountain in the distance. There you can be rescued. Take this map. You will have to survive in the forest. And how will we do that? We have no idea how to survive in a forest. Truss said, frowning. Don't worry. I'll be here, but at the same time, I won't be there. What are you talking about? Pyrrha asked, confused. I will be watching them from a distance, but I will not intervene. I will only give them small advice at critical moments. They have 1 week and 5 days. If they do not achieve it before the vacation ends, they will have failed. This is a waste of time, Cardin muttered, but stopped when he realized something. Luckily, I have a damn scroll and it wasn't in his pocket. Sorry, guys, Naruto interrupted, turning his back to them and taking a radio out of his pocket. This radio communicates only with the airship. The airship is Ohm, and I am the God's brothers. You are my disciples. No one will leave until you complete this test. Is that clear? Yes, everyone responded in unison. Suddenly, Naruto threw something on the ground. Ninja smoke bombs, he exclaimed, and in an instant, he disappeared. Damn crazy. Dove shouted, his frustration echoing through the forest. // Hey Blake, are you really sure we should go ahead with this? Sun asked the dark-haired woman with concern. Remember what happened last time? Maybe we should, I don't know, call for backup. If you are not willing to continue, you are free to abandon the mission, Blake responded with a penetrating and dark look. Blake had decided not to join RWBY and the others at their home precisely to carry out this task, to investigate all of the White Fang's operations and discover their plans. However, until now, his efforts had been fruitless. History repeated itself over and over. Every clue they found led them to a dead end. Okay, so this must be the place where they store the dust, Sun said, looking at the building carefully. According to the latest information, it should be here, Blake confirmed. So, what's the plan? Sun asked. We are going to destroy everything, Blake declared with determination. Are you sure? We could try to take some dust with us, Sun suggested, looking for some advantage in the situation. No, we already have too much blood on our hands to add more, Blake replied firmly. I think you're exaggerating, Sun commented, trying to lighten the mood. Let's continue, Blake said, ignoring the comment. They approached a window to inspect the interior. Looking inside, they noticed that the building was empty, which didn't surprise them at all. Shall we go in? Sun asked, seeking Blake's approval. Yes, she responded in a neutral voice. They proceeded to enter the warehouse and found a table illuminated by a lamp. They approached and took what was on it. They were not surprised by what they found. It was the same situation as always since they had started their search. On the table, there was a card. Sun sighed and asked, what does the card say? Blake also sighed, tired of the situation. Better luck next time, guys. And by the way, boy, that relationship you have with that woman is not going to get you anywhere. I advise you to end it, for your own good. That's what it says. Blake crumpled the card in a gesture of frustration and threw it on the floor. How the hell does he always do this to us? He exclaimed angrily. Maybe it's better this way, Sun said, trying to find the positive side. What do you mean? Blake asked, confused. It's better that we don't find him. Remember that the last time we did, things didn't end well for us, Sun explained. Blake looked at him for a moment with a frown and then turned to leave the place. Sun sighed and followed her in silence. Inside her, she wondered if she should heed the masked man's warnings. All that effort seemed to be in vain. // I'm starting to think this has become an obsession for you, Sun said, with a mix of concern and sarcasm. The White Fang has wreaked havoc on society. It is my responsibility to stop them, Blake stated with a conviction that seemed carved in stone. I'm sorry to have to break your bubble of heroism, but it's not your duty. Also, you shouldn't be doing this right now. You are trying to change, and immersing yourself in these problems is not going to help you. You should at least talk to your colleagues to get some support, Sun advised, in a tone that bordered on exasperation. They shouldn't know, Blake replied, his voice as dark as the moonless night. They wouldn't understand. I'm sure they would, Sun insisted, putting his hands to his head in a gesture of theatrical frustration. They don't know the White Fang like I do, Blake said, closing the topic with a tone that brooked no reply. Sun sighed at Blake's stubbornness, but decided to go ahead with the plan. How many enemies do you have? She asked, trying to change the subject. 20 in total, Blake replied, scanning the area with eagle eyes. Correction. 21, interrupted a mocking voice. They both jumped, startled by the sudden appearance of the masked man who was with them on the terrace. Those over there, said the masked man, pointing towards where the members of the White Fang were, are actually two people. They are so close together that they seem like one. The masked man confronted them, and they waited for him to attack. Hello. The enemy greeted with excessive joy. How have you been, guys? What a beautiful night. Don't tell me, is it a date? I had already given up on your relationship, but I'm glad to see that it's actually working. Congratulations, young man. I'm very happy for you. It seems that persistence pays off. Come, let me shake your hand, said the masked man approaching them, but Sun and Blake quickly backed away. What the hell are you doing here? Blake shouted at the masked man, who looked at her confused, or rather, as if she were some kind of idiot. Well, I'm here with the White Fang doing my thing, he responded with contagious enthusiasm. Damn idiot, I know what you're doing. I've been following you, Blake began. Yes, I know you've been following me all this time. But you should have noticed by now that all the places you went to were empty. Poor kitty, you weren't following me, you were going where I led you, the masked man interrupted with a malicious smile. What are your plans for the White Fang? Blake demanded to know. I'm sorry to disappoint you, miss, but I don't have any master plan. I simply follow orders, do my job, and get paid. Nothing more. If you thought I had some grand scheme for this kingdom, I'm afraid you're wrong. What a shame, huh? No, said the masked man, dramatizing his disappointment with a shrug and a mocking smile. Sun and Blake looked at each other, sharing a moment of frustration. However, the masked man's exaggerated performance made Sun smile. Who knows, maybe in another universe, he would have been an acclaimed actor. And what are you doing now? Sun asked, still entertained by the situation. At this very moment, we are acquiring provisions and a couple of beers, the masked man responded jovially. How? Sun said, confused. Yeah, surprising, right? We're not doing anything illegal, luckily this store is open all day, so it was a piece of cake getting what we needed. Suddenly, Sasuke let out a euphoric scream, throwing his hands in the air as if he were a child at a fair. Guys, look, he exclaimed, and all the members of the White Fang turned their attention to him. Look who I found. The monkey and the cat. Welcome them. The White Fang members, somewhat bewildered, saluted mechanically. As you can see, we are celebrating, friends. Today is the birth of Peter's son, and that deserves a celebration. We have beers, food and gifts for the little one. You are invited to join if you wish, he announced with such enthusiasm that seemed to see Sun and Blake not as threats, but rather as old comrades. Shut up, you damn fool. I'll stop you here and now. I won't let you hurt anyone. Blake exclaimed, her voice full of determination. The masked man sighed dramatically and shouted again towards the White Fang members. Move on, guys. I have to deal with these little troublemakers. It seems they haven't taken my invitation well. How rude. Education is not what it used to be. Sir, a member of the White Fang intervened. Can we help you? Don't worry, guys. Today we are not here to work. Today is a day to celebrate, not to get into trouble, the masked man assured them. Understood. Everyone responded enthusiastically. See you then. See you later, Mr. Sasuke, and please don't be too long. I won't be long. Enjoy, the masked man assured them before turning his attention to the two fawns on the terrace. These guys are amazing, really. Did you know that one of them is a master baker? Their bread is the most coveted in Vale. The bakery was going through tough times, but with a little ingenuity and effort, we transformed the place. Now, it is thriving more than ever, the masked man said with a tone of genuine pride. Blake, fed up with the talk, burst out in fury. Stop it. Stop putting us down. Stop treating us like we're not a real threat. The masked man looked at them. His silence was as disconcerting as his apparent confusion, but they are not. The statement left them so stunned that they stepped back instinctively. Seriously, do you think you can intimidate me? Please don't make me laugh. There could be 1,000 and I still wouldn't consider you a threat, said the masked man with disarming calm. Sun, with palpable concern, turned to Blake. We have to go, Blake. This is more than we can handle. Listen to the monkey Faunus, he has common sense. You really shouldn't continue with this, the masked man warned with a voice so low that the air seemed to become denser, heavier. Blake, defiant and without a trace of fear, shouted, Idiot. Do you think you scare me? Then go to hell. I'm not afraid of you. Suddenly, the atmosphere was filled with unbearable tension. It wasn't cold that made them tremble, but rather a primordial, visceral fear that took over their instincts. Visions of horrible deaths at the hands of the masked man flooded their minds. So you're not afraid of me? Asked the masked man, his voice impregnated with an authority that was not intended to frighten, but that left little room for uncertainty. It was not my intention to instill fear, but they are forcing my hand. I didn't come to fight, but apparently courtesy isn't enough. Don't confuse me with a common thief. Don't equate me with those inept people, he continued, his voice tinged with a veiled warning and a hint of compassion. I will show you a glimpse of my true capacity. Take this as an act of mercy. Don't expect such leniency in our next meeting. The air was charged with palpable tension, and Sun and Blake collapsed to their knees, fighting the nausea that overcame them. The oppression of terror was unbearable, a discomfort that devoured them without mercy. Sasuke advanced towards the fallen couple. Blake, with a superhuman effort, looked up from him to the masked man, terror painted on his face. He tried to retreat, get away from that threatening figure, but his body did not respond. And then, the masked man's hand slowly moved towards his face, stopping a few centimeters away. He withdrew. Damn, it's incomprehensible. No matter how much I analyze it, I refuse to hurt you. Since our first meeting, something has prevented me from hurting you. It's not love, I don't feel anything for you, it's an enigma. I wouldn't have any qualms about hurt your companion, I would even enjoy doing it, but I know that causing him pain would affect you, and that stops me. It's a dilemma, Miss Belladonna. How do you know my name? Yes, it is a mystery, I do not know the reason for my knowledge. The masked man distanced himself from them, his attitude was immediately transformed and then he greeted them jovially. It has been a pleasure to meet again, dear ones. Next time accept my invitation, my abode always welcomes you. See you soon, ape and feline. How radiant you look today. // What are you doing here, you little idiots? Roman asked in an exasperated tone. Wow, Roman, you should watch that tongue. You never know what could happen to you, replied one of them with a veiled warning. Yes, of course, as if you can do a lot. You are simple henchmen. If it weren't for me, who would be working now? You. She needs me more than you. You are nothing more than mere bodyguards. That has much more prestige than what you do. Roman, Mercury Black intervened, his voice full of disdain. Mercury was a man with silver gray hair and eyes. He was wearing a two-tone black jacket, which covered the upper part of his body, adorned with two straps, one crossed over the other. Yes, a simple thief would not have the honor of being on par with Cinder, Emerald Sustre added, with a mocking tone. Emerald was a slim young woman with dark skin and dark red eyes. Her hair, a light emerald color, was cut straight, with bangs equally straight, except for two strands that fell on either side of her face. He wore two bronze rings on his middle finger and wore an exotic white shirt over another olive-colored one, adorned with small white decorations, which appeared to be a strap fastened with gold clasps, from which hung 4 golden chains that extended to his back, giving the impression of being a green bra. Do you always talk like that? Roman asked Mercury. Yes, he always does. It's nonsense. We agree on that. What are you talking about? Well, it doesn't matter. Esmeralda downplayed the matter. Cinder sent us to check on how all the progress is going. How's everything going, huh? Roman stood up from his seat and Cinder's 2 henchmen followed him. He approached a door, opened it and revealed what was inside. Phew, Mercury Black whistled, impressed. Yes, actually, I'm very impressed, Esmeralda spoke, her voice reflecting genuine surprise. Of course. It wasn't that difficult, really. Here's all the sex she asked for. It would be easier to work for her if you told me what she's planning. That's something you shouldn't worry about, my dear Roman, a voice emerged from the darkness, approaching them. It was Cinder Fall. Cinder had black hair and bright yellow-orange eyes. Her nails were painted a dark red. She wore a short, off-the-shoulder, V-neck dark red dress adorned with yellow designs. A blue feather accessory adorned her right hip, over a slit in her dress. Her dress ended in an inverted triangular train at the back, just above her knees. One could only say that this woman was beautiful, dangerously beautiful. Cinder, as you can see, everything is going correctly, Roman said, trying to hide his frustration. It seems so. I am pleased with your devotion, Cinder replied, her voice as cold as ice. To hell with that. Really. Why do you always talk like you're in a movie? It doesn't matter, you could at least give me a clue about your plans. I don't know, maybe that way it could be more useful. Everything in due time, Roman, she responded, approaching and touching Roman's cheek with a caress that, far from being seductive, was painful and burning. The only thing you need to know is that you are useful to me. For now, Roman replied, with a tone of defiance. That depends entirely on you. So, tell me something, we don't need to steal any more pee. Suddenly, Aviva, shouts of joy could be heard coming from a door to the right. What's going on here, Roman? Cinder asked, frowning. Well, they have finished their work and are now resting. I don't know the details, but it seems like they are at a party. And you allow them to do that? Cinder asked with a deeper voice. Why not? They have nothing to do now. They are not my servants, they obey you, so they can do whatever they want. They only have to obey me when we raid. I understand. I guess I'll have to impose some order, she said, moving away from Roman and approaching the door. Opening it, she revealed a banner that read, "Congratulations, Peter." All the members of the White Fang, under the command of Roman Torchwick, were there, enjoying cake, food and beers, all happy, a sight that Cinder did not like at all. "Mr. Roman, how are you? It seems that you have come to join us," said a male voice. He was a man dressed in a black hooded robe and a completely white mask with two small holes barely visible. Come on, and I see you've brought company. No problem, right, guys?" The White Fang members looked at each other and shrugged their shoulders indifferently. "Sure, no problem. You can join, Mr. Sasuke." "You heard well, come closer. There is no reason to fear, we are celebrating a magnificent event," proclaimed the masked man, while friendly holding a man by the shoulder. "This good man here has become a father for the second time. Can you believe it? Excellent work, partner. Now you will have to redouble your efforts, but don't worry, you have our support." "Thank you, Mr. Sasuke, your support means a lot to me," said the White Fang member, his voice tinged with humility. "Will they join the celebration?" Sasuke asked curiously. "I don't see the need," Cinder intervened firmly. "This ends now." "Why? We are not doing anything wrong. We have already completed the task of collecting all the dust." "Mr. Roman, this woman is ordering us to stop," Sasuke protested. "Sasuke, it would be wise for you to remain silent and obey. The party is cancelled," Roman ruled with authority. "I'm sorry to say, guys, but the boss has spoken. There's nothing we can do." The members of the White Fang lowered their heads in resignation, "But don't worry, Yankar, you have a house, true? If I have it. Then, let's move the celebration to Yankar's house. We will continue there." Everyone stood up, gathered their belongings and prepared to leave, passing by Cinder. She watched the scene with a mixture of curiosity and disdain, but allowed them to leave through the door. "Wow, Mr. Roman, it would have been useful to know this before to avoid inconveniences," Sasuke commented with a tone of resignation. "Who is this guy?" Mercury Black asked disdainfully. "Let me introduce you to Sasuke, a new member of our organization," Roman explained. "A pleasure, sir. Mercury Black. And you, miss, are an honor. My name is Sasuke. Emerald Sustre," she replied, her voice devoid of emotion. "The pleasure is mine, miss." Sasuke extended his hand, but Cinder looked at it with displeasure and did not accept it. "Cinder Fall, delighted," she said with a barely veiled tone of contempt. "It seems we haven't had the pleasure yet. I am Roman Torchwick's employer." "Really?" Sasuke exclaimed, surprised. "I'm sorry, Mr. Roman, I had no idea you worked for someone. It's an honor to meet you, miss. Sasuke at your service." "Well, what were you doing here?" "We were celebrating the birth of the son of one of our members." "I understand. And who gave you permission?" "I asked Roman Torchwick and he approved it." "I see. So you were the cause, Roman. I think you deserve a punishment." "Cinder, you know perfectly well that there is no reason to punish me." "I know, but it's a matter of principle. Did you really think that this was a place for celebrations and joy?" "I don't think so. So, who should I punish? The one who had the audacity to ask permission for this nonsense or the one who was so reckless as to grant it?" "The one who requested permission." Roman mouthed the question, his trembling voice barely concealing his anxiety. "So it will be then. Emerald, Mercury, it's time to teach this buffoon a lesson," Cinder ruled with a coldness that chilled the blood. Mercury stepped forward confidently, his eyes flashing with anticipation. "I'm sorry to tell you, friend, you got into the wrong situation." "I guess so," Sasuke replied, his nonchalance almost palpable. In the blink of an eye, Mercury attempted a surprise attack, but Sasuke, with supernatural agility, dodged the blow without even looking. Mercury, bewildered, barely had time to register the counteroffensive. Sasuke grabbed his foot, slammed it against the floor, then lifted it to hit the ceiling. And just as Mercury began to fall, Sasuke finished him off with a punch to the abdomen, sending him flying across the room until he was embedded in the wall, only his legs dangling in view. The scene left Roman and the others speechless, even Cinder couldn't hide her surprise. Mercury Black, the scion of a legendary assassin, had been defeated in the blink of an eye, something unheard of. "I hope he doesn't hold a grudge when he comes to," Sasuke commented, with a nonchalance that bordered on insolence. Then, addressing Emerald, he added, "I imagine I won't need to warn you about how imprudent it would be to challenge me, although I doubt you'll take my words into account." Fixing her gaze on Cinder, she continued, "I have committed no crime, therefore I deserve no punishment. Your logic is flawed, madam. It seems you dislike others' happiness. I don't mean to sound reproachful, but your attitude is that of a true heartless person." No one expected that someone would dare to speak to Cinder like that. Roman couldn't help but think, "Oh no, boy, you just signed your death warrant. What the hell is going through your head?" Sasuke watched Emerald, waiting for her move. Suddenly, he raised her right hand, holding a gun that was pointed at her own head, and then deflected it upwards, shooting at the ceiling. Emerald, stunned, could not believe that someone could break her illusion without her consent, something she considered impossible. It seems that you have a unique ability that allows you to create illusions with your eyes. Impressive, I must admit. It's a shame it doesn't work on me. Do you want to witness a real illusion? Emerald, caught in the hypnotic web of the mosque's orifices, sank into an abyss of sleep, her body giving way to the weight of lethargy and collapsing onto the cold floor. Cinder, eyes sparkling with curiosity and a hint of admiration, watched the scene. Sasuke, with movements that exuded lethal efficiency, had neutralized Mercury and Emerald in the blink of an eye, a feat that even for her, accustomed to excellence, was impressive. Who was this mysterious Sasuke? The masked man, with a theatrical gesture, picked up Emerald's pistol and directed it towards her limp head. Wait, Cinder's voice broke through the tense stillness, her expression a whirlwind of suppressed anger and barely concealed concern. She can still be useful. Don't kill her. The masked man, whose posture softened as he understood the order, dropped the weapon next to Emerald's still body. You're in charge, boss. If my words were offensive, please accept my most sincere apologies. Cinder examined him with a dissecting gaze, but then, with a shrug, decided to ignore the incident. Okay, I'll ignore it. For this once, Roman. Roman, who had observed the interaction with a mixture of fear and relief, exclaimed in a low voice. Yes. Looks like you've stumbled upon a valuable resource, Roman. Well done. With those words, Cinder vanished behind the door, leaving behind an echo of mystery. Roman, with a sneer of disdain, muttered to himself, what a lack of courtesy, miss. At least you could have taken your henchman. The masked man, whose bravery bordered on foolishness, received a disapproving look from Roman. That was, no, brave is not the word. It was the biggest nonsense I have ever witnessed. You shouldn't have done it. Is she so dangerous? Asked the masked man, a shadow of doubt crossing his hidden face. Hell yes, she's a danger with legs. Don't repeat that feat, understand? It won't happen again, sir, the masked man responded, saluting with a military stiffness before relaxing and taking a feather from his robe. How about we play a little prank on this impertinent lady? The masked man waved the feather in front of Roman, a mischievous smile peeking out from under the mask. An obscene drawing, perhaps. Roman, with a smile that dripped with malice, nodded knowingly. A dirty drawing and a message that says, I'm Cinder's bitch. Although, come to think of it, that could be interpreted more as a compliment to her. This girl has serious problems. With these words, the masked man proceeded, his feather dancing over Emerald's unconscious skin, while Roman watched, his smile widening at the mischief that unfolded. You know, if you had been a singer or a farmer, you would be just as bored as you are now, Kurama commented with a mocking tone. What do you mean? Naruto asked, frowning. Look, you live a peaceful life, and you always said you didn't want to be a farmer or a musician or any of that nonsense. You say you want to help people, but here you are, wasting your time with these kids, Kurama explained, waving his tail with disdain. If you really wanted to make a difference, you could be a hero, like those in comics. Hunt criminals at night or innovate with advanced technology, the fox suggested with a cunning glint in his eyes. Technological advances. This world is already more advanced than ours, they have flying vehicles, Naruto replied, looking up at the sky where ships were flying through the clouds. I'm not referring to that. Have you noticed anything peculiar? Here, everything develops around dust, Kurama pointed out, with a penetrating look. And what does that mean? Naruto asked, with genuine curiosity. Are you stupid or are you pretending? I say it often, but it's true. All their technology depends on dust. What do you think will happen if it runs out? Kurama questioned, with a sinister smile. Well, everything would go to waste, that's obvious, Naruto admitted, scratching his head. Exactly. They have no alternative energy source. They don't know about fossil fuel, nor steam engines, nor internal combustion engines. Electric dams and other innovations of our world are unknown here. For them, exploring other energy sources is a waste of time because dust is very versatile, Kurama explained, extending his claws as if revealing a great secret. I understand what you're getting at, Naruto said, nodding slowly. If you really want to make a difference, you could head to Menagerie. There, hardship is your daily bread and dust is a rare luxury. Imagine erecting an electric dam, electrifying the entire region and raising the quality of life of its people. Inhabitants. And yet here you stand, wasting your days on the hunt, when it is evident, and not to sound presumptuous, that your skill far surpasses that of everyone here. Even Glinda Goodwitch would pale before your power. At first, paranoia consumed me upon arriving in this world, but I have come to the conclusion that the power of these individuals barely rivals that of a Chunin. Naruto, in this place, there is no doubt that you are the most powerful entity. Kurama finished, his voice tinged with ironic respect. Let's say you're right. If all of them united against me, they could finish me off, Naruto reflected, considering the possibility. That's true, but why would they? There's no reason for it. So, tell me, Naruto, why are you wasting your time here? Answer me that, Kurama urged, his tone impatient. Naruto looked up at the sky, sitting on the top of a tree, his gaze lost in the infinite blue. I don't know, it's like something ties me to this place. I had already considered what you're telling me before, and still, I can't find an answer. I guess this is my place, and although there are other ways to help, none of them seem as gratifying to me as this one. I have no answers for you, I don't even know why I do what I do. Boy, sometimes you're an enigma to me, Kurama replied, his voice tinged with exasperation. Believe me, Kurama, there are times when I don't even understand myself, Naruto said, his smile lighting up his face. I guess it's because I don't want to distance myself from them, Naruto confessed, his gaze still fixed on the sky, a warm smile on his face. I can say with certainty that they are my true friends and I do not wish to leave their side. Kurama remained silent, reflecting on the young man's words. Deep down, he knew Naruto was right. Those boys were his first and best friends. Understand that you will not be able to forge a genuine friendship if you hide the truth, Kurama warned. And what am I supposed to tell them, Kurama? Naruto asked with a sarcastic smile. That I am a ninja from another dimension who landed in this world after a battle with his best friend who almost killed him with a lightning bolt to the chest. Do you expect me to reveal that to you? Please. Laughed Naruto, his laughter echoing through the branches. They will think that I have lost my mind and will send me to the first sanatorium they find in this kingdom. Obviously, I will not tell them anything. The fox shared the young man's laughter. You're right, it's an absurd idea. What was I thinking? Although, you should at least tell them how you got to Beacon. That's out of the question. I won't tell you anything, that never happened, Naruto stated firmly. As you say, the fox responded, his mocking tone reflecting his amusement at the young man's stubbornness. Also, Naruto, with a playful smile, descended from the tree until he was a few meters from the ground. Where would I find situations as funny as these? He watched with amusement the CRDL team and the NNPR team, who were busy splitting a rotten tree in half. Suddenly, Cardin pulled out an insect larva from the trunk. This is going to be entertaining, Naruto thought. Although it was not his preferred method, he remembered the survival lessons of the Ninja Academy. In extreme situations, any food source will do. Now, this knowledge was transmitted to his friends, who looked for edible larvae in the trunk. It looks like he's going to do it, both the fox and the Uzumaki murmured, almost in a knowing whisper. Cardin, with a mix of bravery and revulsion, chewed on the larva, his face turning a shade of green. Despite obvious disgust, he swallowed determinedly. How disgusting! He exclaimed with disgust. Damn Naruto! From his vantage point in the tree, Naruto couldn't contain a laugh. Cheer up, Cardin. It's only been 3 days. What happened to the chocolates I gave you? Ren intervened with an exclamation. Nora ate them all. Nora, with an apologetic gesture, shouted, I'm sorry. I couldn't resist. Naruto smiled to himself. See, Kurama, this is much better. Everything is calm, in order, nothing can go wrong. The fox, with a slightly irritated tone, replied, Really, Naruto? Naruto sighed, aware of the irony of his words. Yes, I already realized what I said. I hope that what comes next is not so bad. //. Hello, Blake, Yang shouted from the entrance to the dining room, where Ruby and Weiss were already present. Blake, sitting in her usual spot, waved half-heartedly as she immersed herself in reading the second volume Naruto wrote. A few moments later, the rest of Team RWBY joined Blake. How was your vacation? Yang asked excitedly, as she stole the apple from Blake's tray. Hey, Blake protested. What are you reading? Weiss asked. Nothing. Blake slammed the book shut and hid it. What are you doing here? We're having lunch, Ruby replied. Luckily there are no classes today, it's just a welcome. Real classes start tomorrow. Thank goodness. Yang stretched and leaned on the table. Hey, has anyone seen Naruto and his team? I haven't seen them all morning. That's weird, Weiss commented. They should have gotten there before us. With how diligent Naruto is, I doubt they forgot about this. Maybe something serious happened to them, Ruby said, worried. Don't worry, Blake reassured. I talked to Naruto an hour ago, he told me they were coming. Do you have Naruto's number? Weiss asked, curious. I asked him for it and he gave it to me. That easy. Ruby was surprised. It seems so. I was also surprised. I thought it would be more complicated, with how reserved he is. Ruby stood up excitedly. Let's get our food. Yes. Weiss and Yang responded, but stopped short when the door to the dining room burst open. There were the Cardinal and NNPR teams, looking ragged, dirty and wild-eyed. Ignoring the stares of everyone in the dining room, they grabbed a tray and headed to the food stalls. Each one of them, without even looking at what they put on their plate, grabbed everything available and approached Team RWBY's table to start eating. They did not do it in moderation. They looked like hungry animals, especially Team Cardinal and Nora. Ren and Pyrrha, although also eager, showed a little more restraint. What the hell? Weiss looked in revulsion. That seemed to have emerged from a pitched battle. Food flew from their trays as they devoured with an urgency that bordered on the comical. Have they confused the dining room with the combat arena? Yang joked, observing the scene. Or maybe with a stable, Weiss added, frowning at the spectacle. Hey, Nora exclaimed between bites. When it comes to food, it's every man for himself. That explains the lack of manners, Blake muttered, returning to his book. Trying to change the subject, Ruby pointed towards the window. Look, the weather is perfect for training after eating. If there is any food left after this siege, Weiss said, as a piece of bread flew near her head. Team RWBY, with knowing looks, wondered what adventures had led their teammates to such a state of abandonment and excessive hunger. How are you girls? I hope you enjoyed your vacation, Naruto's voice interrupted her musings. Impeccable, with his clean clothes and his characteristic smile, he sat next to his team and began to eat with the tranquility and courtesy that always distinguished him. Naruto, Yang asked, with a mix of doubt and curiosity. What's happening here? Oh, this, Naruto responded with a nonchalant gesture, is nothing alarming. Suddenly, Cardin burst into tears, followed by the rest of the Cardinal team. Even Nora began to sob. Nora, what's wrong? Ruby approached, trying to dry Nora's tears with a handkerchief that Naruto had given her some time ago. But as they approached, Nora growled like a dog, making Ruby step back in alarm. I'm sorry about Nora, Ren said, his mouth still full of food. The holidays were difficult for all of us. Weiss frowned and scolded Naruto. What exactly happened? Naruto looked at her and smiled kindly, causing Weiss to look away. Then, Naruto spoke again. Don't worry so much, Naruto began. // Weiss slammed her fists on the table, her voice filled with disbelief. You sent them to a forest, without food or weapons, for 5 days. Naruto responded calmly, minimizing Weiss' screams. Yes, it was for training. Yang couldn't contain her astonishment. You're kidding. Why would you do something like that? It doesn't make sense. It's difficult to understand my motives, Yang, Naruto said with an enigmatic smile. But I assure you that they came out stronger from that experience. Isn't that right, guys? The boys did not respond, absorbed in their food. Finishing his tray, Cardin sighed deeply. Oh, how I miss the food. Cardin was smiling, wiping away tears, visibly relieved to be back. Even Yang felt a glimmer of sympathy for him. Ruby, curious, asked. Cardin, what exactly happened? It was hell, Cardin replied, pointing at Naruto with disdain. This guy threw us into a damn forest and left us there without supplies. You know I didn't abandon them, Naruto replied. I was nearby, watching over them. Cardin muttered resentfully. The first day was easy, but the second. We followed Naruto's instructions to the letter, but without prior preparation, it was a challenge. Getting food in the following days was an odyssey. Ruby interjected, her voice filled with concern. What did they have to do? On the third day, we were starving, Cardin continued, his voice shaking. We couldn't find anything to eat, not even hunting a deer was possible. So we resorted to Naruto's survival methods. Eating insects and other disgusting things. I thought I would die of hunger. Naruto looked at him with an unfazed expression. It was only a week and 5 days, Cardin. It's not that big of a deal. But you got through it. Have you finished eating, girls? Yes. They responded in unison. Then go take a bath, Naruto said. Team Cardinal and NNPR were heading to their rooms. Naruto looked at the girls and then said goodbye. See you tomorrow in class, ladies. Team RWBY waved back, and Yang pondered out loud. This guy, sometimes I think Naruto really is crazy. After everything he's been through, I wouldn't be surprised if something isn't right in his head. With irony and humor, Team RWBY shared a knowing look, wondering what other crazy things would await them next to Naruto and his peculiar training style. // I hate this place, Mercury murmured, his voice tinged with reluctance. I love it, Esmeralda replied with a smile. Look at the buildings, feel the cultural diversity, it's vibrant. Sure, and it's full of fools who are easy to con, Mercury growled. You find that anywhere, Mercury? Yes, of course. How much longer do we have to get there? Just a couple more streets. Cool, really, Mercury rolled his eyes. As they walked under the midday sun through the streets of Vale, the tension between them was palpable. Mercury, with her usual air of indifference, seemed to drag his feet more than necessary. Esmeralda, on the other hand, walked with determination, each step an echo of her loyalty to Cinder. Despite her complaints, Mercury knew there was no room for dissent. Cinder's orders were absolute, and Esmeralda followed them without question, no matter how ridiculous or dangerous they might be. "We have arrived," Esmeralda announced, stopping with a dramatic gesture, her hands resting on her hips. "After you, Miss," Mercury said with an exaggerated bow. They entered the bookstore, a place that lacked any sign of grandeur. Only a handful of disorganized books adorned the shelves, accompanied by a scattered collection of comics that seemed to scream for attention. "Welcome to the Tucson bookstore, the sanctuary of every imaginable book under the sun. How can I assist you?" The owner's voice broke the silence that had settled between the dusty shelves. "We're just taking a look," Mercury responded, his casual tone failing to hide his disinterest. "Actually, I have a question. Do you have The Thief and the Butcher?" Esmeralda asked, her curiosity seeming genuine. "Yes, of course." "Wonderful. Would you like to take a copy?" "No, I was just curious." Mercury, meanwhile, continued to inspect the books with a speed that defied the purpose of reading. "And what about The Garden of Violets in paperback?" Esmeralda continued, her sing-song voice echoing in the confined space. "We have it in paperback and hardcover," Mercury interrupted, his voice heavy with sarcasm. "Oh, what a dilemma," Esmeralda sighed, feigning a difficult decision. "Both options sound tempting. Hey, something doesn't add up here. There are no pictures." Mercury closed another book with a sharp slam and turned to Tucson. "Hey, do you have comics?" "They are right in front." Mercury's irony was as sharp as a knife blade, cutting the air with each word. Esmeralda, for her part, played the role of her curious customer to perfection, her amused smile barely hiding the cunning in her eyes. "Oh, wait, what about The Third Crusade?" Esmeralda asked, her smile now wide and full of mischief. I don't think we have that book," Tucson replied, his concern palpable, spreading across his face like a shadow. "But you're Tucson, right? That's how it is. Then I guess." The door behind Tucson burst open, and a hand emerged holding a book. "Mr. Tucson, what do you think? We do have The Third Crusade. You shouldn't worry about leaving a customer dissatisfied." From the shadow emerged a figure that Mercury and Esmeralda knew very well. It was Sasuke. Of course, none of them knew what Sasuke's face looked like, they only knew his silhouette and his characteristic clothing. When Sasuke fully revealed himself, he carefully observed Esmeralda and Mercury. "Oh, guys, what are you doing here?" "And what are you doing here, stupid?" Esmeralda asked, her tone now tinged with irritation. "Well, I work here. It's a part-time job. Money doesn't grow on trees, I have to pay bills. I don't care. Stay out of this, Sasuke." "Understood, Miss Sustre." The masked man grabbed a chair from who knows where and sat behind the counter. "I guess you know why we're here, right?" Esmeralda said to Tucson. "Yes. Then you will know that today will not end well for you." "Yes. Are you going to resist?" Esmeralda's voice became serious and threatening. "Yes," Tucson shouted, his anger evident. But before he could act, a hand protruded from his chest, and behind him stood the masked man, his hand covered in lightning that hummed with the sound of 1,000 birds in flight. Small drops of blood splashed on Esmeralda's face, who wiped it away with a disgusted expression. The masked man removed his hand from him and Tucson's body fell to the ground. The masked man looked at Tucson carefully and then bowed, as if he were a little embarrassed. "I'm sorry, Mr. Tucson. Although I work for you, Miss Cinder has greater authority over me than you do. If she wants her dead, that's how she should be." The masked man stood up straight and directed his gaze towards Esmeralda and Mercury, his presence imposing a solemn silence in the room. The atmosphere in the bookstore was dense, each sigh echoed among the shelves loaded with stories yet to be discovered. Mercury and Esmeralda shared a look full of surprise and mutual recognition. The mission had taken an unexpected turn, and although both were accustomed to the chaos and violence of their surroundings, the masked man's impassiveness reminded them of the weight of Cinder's orders. Tucson's fate had been decided long before they set foot in the bookstore. Wow, that was quite theatrical. There it was, that nonchalance that irritated the couple so much. They knew it wasn't a farce. That was simply their nature, and what bothered them most was that a jester could have bested them so easily. The humiliation still burned in her memory. "I don't understand why Miss Cinder sent you both. One would have been enough. Don't tell me that she doubts your competence to eliminate a mere member of the White Fang," he said with a mocking tone that made Emerald and Mercury frown. "Why that look? Come on, it was just a joke. You guys are formidable. Don't take my words seriously. Miss Sustre, your combination of blows is impressive," commented the masked man, imitating a boxing sequence, "and Mr. Black, your skill with your legs, or should I say, your prosthetics, is remarkable." Mercury looked surprised. "How do you know that?" The masked man let out a suppressed laugh, a barely perceptible smile appearing on his face. Do you think I don't recognize the feel of metal? Please, only a fool wouldn't notice. Be careful, if you continue to be so distracted, I could displace you. It's not that I want it, but it will be inevitable if you continue to be so careless. You better keep quiet, Sasuke, Esmeralda warned dangerously, drawing her weapon. The tension rose, and the air was charged with the electricity of impending confrontation. Sasuke's words, although said in a mocking tone, had touched a sensitive nerve. Mercury and Esmeralda, although used to ridicule, couldn't help but feel the sting of truth in them. Competition and survival were the essence of their existence, and any sign of weakness could be fatal in their unforgiving world. The masked man, despite the palpable tension, remained imperturbable. His calmness contrasted with the anxiety of Mercury and Esmeralda, who were used to every move being a matter of life or death in their dangerous power game. Please, Miss Sustre, the masked man said, his tone now serious, devoid of its previous joviality. They're not exactly discreet. Were they trying to start a fight here? Everyone outside would have noticed. Don't I deserve thanks for my help? With those words, he retreated through the back door, fading into the shadows. From the city. How I hate that guy, Mercury murmured, his voice heavy with resentment. You're not the only one. I'm sure that even Cinder doesn't like him, but she still keeps him around. Maybe she suspects something that we don't know, Esmeralda reflected, her gaze lost in thought. Or maybe he just wants to keep him under control. I'll tell you straight, people like him don't let themselves be controlled. You just hope that they will be useful to you, and if you don't come to an agreement, they will eliminate you without a thought, Mercury said, his tone gloomy reflecting the harsh reality of his world. Esmeralda let out a mocking laugh, sure, as if I could stand up to Cinder. Mercury smiled back, you're right. But there was a hint of doubt in his eyes, an unanswered question about the true nature of his enigmatic companion. The bookstore, now silent, seemed to hold the echoes of their confrontation. The books, mute witnesses to the scene, remained motionless, as if holding their breath. On the streets of Vale, life continued oblivious to the drama that had unfolded within its walls. Mercury and Esmeralda, even under the shadow of uncertainty, knew they had to continue. Cinder's mission was all that mattered, and any distraction, any deviation from the plan, could be her downfall. They're here. They're here, Ruby exclaimed, her voice brimming with excitement as she jumped with excitement across the floor of Beacon's landing strip. Yes, Ruby, Yang responded, her smile a reflection of the morning sun, illuminating her face with warmth. They're here, Weiss repeated, her smile more reserved, but equally sincere. Seriously, why do we have to be here? I mean, what's the need? Blake asked in a tone of voice that bordered on impatience, her gaze lost in the horizon, searching for something beyond the obvious. None in particular, but Ruby wanted to come. She was excited to see the new weapons, Yang explained, hugging her sister affectionately. The air vibrated with the anticipation of the new students who would participate in the vital festival. Today was the official day, the day when all the academies would converge at this meeting point. Some students had already arrived before, but they did so early. Today, the sky was painted with the silhouettes of ships that brought with them promises of a future forged in competition and camaraderie. Whoa, you're here, girls, announced a familiar voice. Team RWBY turned to meet Ren, Nora, and Pyrrha, but strangely, Naruto was not with them. Oh, Pyrrha, how have you been? Ruby ran to Pyrrha, hugging her neck warmly. Pyrrha smiled happily, stroking Ruby's hair with the tenderness of an older sister. I'm fine. Naruto said he wanted to see the new students, Pyrrha commented, although her look turned gloomy for a moment. I don't understand why. Calm down, Pyrrha, Ren said, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. I don't think Naruto's intentions are malicious. Yeah, well, I wouldn't be so sure, Nora chimed in with a mischievous smile. I bet he's looking for pretty girls. He's an incorrigible flirt. I would say it's more of an unconscious, Ren added, his tone one of amused resignation. What's Naruto doing there? Yang asked, pointing toward a makeshift stage near the entrance to the Beacon Auditorium. There was Naruto, microphone in hand, surrounded by a group of unknown musicians holding exotic and varied instruments. Ren put his hands to his face, fearing what might happen next, and sighed deeply. No, please, Naruto, don't do anything I think you're going to do, he murmured, his voice laden with comical exhaustion. I'm exhausted from your antics. Then the music began, and the first notes of a triumphant melody rang through the air. Open double angle bracket, we are the champions, my friends, close double angle bracket, Naruto sang with a confidence that defied reality. Open double angle bracket and we'll keep on fighting until the end, close double angle bracket, he continued, his voice rising above the crowd. Open double angle bracket, we are the champions, close double angle bracket, the choir joined in, and the song became an anthem of early victory. The irony of the situation was not lost on anyone. Naruto, ever the showman, had found a way to turn a simple welcome into a spectacle worth remembering. But it's been no bed of roses. No pleasure cruise. I consider it a challenge before the whole human race. And I ain't going to lose close double angle bracket. You know, just when I thought Naruto couldn't surprise me anymore, he goes and does this, Ren said with a deadpan look. Biome, I'm sure this wasn't planned. I agree with you, Pyrrha said with a slight smile on her face. Naruto is always unpredictable like that. Open double angle bracket. We are the champions, my friend. And we'll keep on fighting till the end. We are the champions. We are the champions. No time for losers. Because we are the champions of the world. Close double angle bracket. I had no idea Naruto knew how to play the piano, RWBY asked with wide eyes of surprise. Yes, it's amazing what Naruto can do, Weiss said. And he also sings very well, but I had never heard this song. Where did he get it from? Yang spoke. Ren, Pyrrha, RWBY, Weiss and Yang weren't the only ones who were amazed by Naruto's performance. The entire courtyard was filled with students, teachers, and visitors who had come to Beacon, the prestigious Hunter Academy. His mission was to give a motivational speech to new students and share his experiences as a student. But Naruto, who had never been very good at following rules, decided it would be more fun to give them a musical show. So, unbeknownst to anyone, he had set up a stage with a piano, a microphone and some speakers. He had chosen a song that he liked a lot, one that he had heard on one of his trips around the world. Open double angle bracket. We are the champions, my friend. And we'll keep on fighting till the end. We are the champions. Close double angle bracket. Glinda. Yes, Ozpin. This was not in the program. Lo say. And why is Mr. Uzumaki singing and how has he set up this scene here? I have no idea, he didn't tell me anything. Glinda and Ozpin watched Naruto with a mixture of surprise and resignation. They knew Naruto well and knew that he was capable of anything. Although they would have liked him to follow the established script, they couldn't deny that his performance was impressive and that he was cheering everyone up. Ho ho ho. A jolly laugh was heard. This boy really knows how to entertain the masses. He's a great showman, Peter Port spoke. Yes, is there anything this young man doesn't do well? Said Bartholomew Oobleck with his characteristic thermos of coffee. Professors Port and Oobleck also watched Naruto, along with other colleagues. Open double angle bracket. We are the champions. No time for losers. Because we are the champions of the world. Close double angle bracket. When Naruto finished singing, he stood up from his piano and stood in front of the crowd, which erupted in applause and cheers. He bowed in thanks and smiled widely. He was very happy with how everything had turned out and seeing everyone's faces of astonishment and admiration. Of course, he intended to follow Glinda and Ozpin's instructions, but he decided to give it a more personal touch, so to speak. Welcome to Beacon, she exclaimed excitedly. Welcome to Beacon, the beacon of hope and celebration of the vital festival. Today is not only a holiday, but a sacred moment in which we honor the union and coexistence of the diverse cultures of Remnant. We remember the end of the Great War, a dark era that will be marked by infamy in our history. But it is also a day of joy, where we celebrate the dawn of a new era. An era forged on the foundations of a better world, a world full of possibilities for all. Although that ideal future has not yet reached our doors, we remain hopeful that future generations will witness its splendor. The peace we enjoy today would not be possible without the collaboration and sacrifice of our heroes, the Hunters. Brave warriors who fight tirelessly to protect our world and its people from the terrible Grimm. It is our obligation, our unavoidable duty, to take over and perpetuate your ideals. During this festival, we will demonstrate our skills in combat, showing the world that we are the new guardians. With us, security is guaranteed, and we will not cease in our fight. Evil will only prevail over our lifeless bodies, and even then, our resistance will endure. Our will is unbreakable, and we will not give up. It is our duty, our responsibility to protect them, and we will not be defeated. The place erupted in applause, filled with joy at Uzumaki's words. The academy professors nodded approvingly, impressed by his eloquence. He really has a way with words, Bartholomew commented, with a wry smile. If the young Uzumaki keeps up this pace, he will not only stand out as a formidable hunter, but he could even eclipse all those before him, commented Peter Port, with a mischievous smile and a mischievous gleam in his eyes. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and jokes as students and teachers shared a moment of togetherness, inspired by the fervor and determination that vibrated in every word of the speech they had just witnessed. Now, let us welcome the students of Haven Academy, whose impertinence is surpassed only by their enthusiasm, he announced, causing a new wave of cheers among those present. And let's not forget the steadfast students of Shade Academy, he continued, as applause echoed throughout the room. And, of course, to the upright and disciplined students of Atlas Academy, always ready and willing to defend the innocent, Naruto said, saluting militarily. The Atlas students were not as effusive as the others, but they nodded and smiled proudly. Also, I must admit that none of this would be possible without the guidance of the beautiful and charming Vice Principal Glinda Goodwitch, he added, as a slightly confused but pleased Glinda nodded from the stage. And now, I say goodbye. Miss Goodwitch will give you instructions for the festival. It has been a pleasure to welcome you. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, Naruto Uzumaki concluded, coming down from the stage to join his friends among the applause and admiration from all. The Haven students couldn't resist launching a playful retort. We hope those words aren't just hot air, Uzumaki, they shouted, causing widespread laughter. And don't forget us when you're famous, added a shade student, while those from Atlas nodded solemnly, although with a knowing smile. Glinda, regaining her composure, approached the microphone. Well, after that very Uzumaki speech, let's proceed with the instructions. Please pay attention, she said, and the audience fell into an expectant silence, ready for the next part of the event. What did you think, girls? Naruto asked with a shy smile. Did you enjoy my speech? Weiss responded with a radiant smile. It was impressive, Naruto. He scratched his head, embarrassed but pleased. Naruto, that was amazing. RWBY exclaimed, hugging him with such force that she almost knocked him down. Despite the size difference, Naruto managed to stay on his feet. Thank you, RWBY, he said, gently stroking the silver-eyed girl's head. You did incredibly well, Ren commented. I bet you improvised everything, right? Ah, you know me too well, friend. It's a little scary, have you been spying on me? Naruto joked. Ren shook his head, smiling. I just hope you don't get in trouble for this. Don't worry, if there are problems, I'll make sure you guys don't get involved, Naruto assured. Weiss, surprised, interjected, I had no idea you sang. Yes, when I arrived in Vale, I didn't have a cent. Singing in the streets was my way of making a living, Naruto explained. Yang laughed. It was you who sang in the streets of Vale. I didn't recognize you. Were you there? I didn't see you either. How small the world is, Naruto said with a mischievous smile. He approached Weiss and whispered, So, Weiss, would you mind if I sing to you on your balcony in private? Although he spoke quietly, everyone could hear him. Weiss, red with embarrassment, pushed him away. Naruto, stop flirting with her, Nora reprimanded. I'm not flirting, I'm just bothering her a little, Naruto defended himself. Ren intervened with a serious look, I don't think it counts as annoyance if she enjoys it. Really? Naruto asked, confused. Weiss, do you enjoy being bothered? Of course not, Weiss exclaimed, indignant. Come, she doesn't enjoy it. Stop making strange assumptions, Naruto said, trying to change the subject. Suddenly, a voice called from a distance, Naruto. Everyone turned towards the fountain and saw a tall blonde boy waving. Naruto recognized him and they both ran to meet each other. Naruto. The boy shouted. John. Naruto responded with equal enthusiasm. But John's joy quickly turned to annoyance. Naruto. She exclaimed with a more severe tone. John. Naruto asked, confused. John's voice went from cheerful to irritated. Naruto. Oh no, Naruto muttered, turning to flee. Naruto. Wait, John shouted. I am going to kill you. Naruto ran, shouting, Ah. Come here, coward. How can you think of sending me those things? Specialist Schnee checks the rooms every week. You have no idea how much trouble you've gotten me into, John exclaimed. Naruto's friends watched the scene with bewilderment and a mixture of concern and amusement. Amidst the confusion and laughter, the group's camaraderie grew stronger, united by Naruto's antics and indomitable charisma. Let me introduce you to a good friend, Naruto began, holding John by the neck, who was leaning slightly due to his superior stature. He is John Arc, Weiss interrupted, or as they call him, the Immortal. John blushed and covered his face with both hands in a show of modesty. Oh no, please don't do that, he pleaded. Wow, it seems like you're a celebrity even here, huh, buddy? Naruto joked, his voice filled with joy. The Immortal? RWBY asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. Weiss turned her head towards his leader, raising an eyebrow in annoyance. Really, RWBY? He questioned. I don't know him either, Yang admitted, scratching her head in confusion. Same here, added Blake Belladonna. The rest of the NNPR team also seemed confused, except for Pyrrha, who showed signs of recognition. Really? No one follows the news here. Weiss put her hands to her temples, exasperated. John, the Immortal, although only a first-year student at Atlas Academy, has completed 4 missions considered impossible and suicidal. Not even an experienced hunter could have survived such tests, and he pointed to John, who looked nervous, not only survived, but he also completed them. And the most impressive thing is that he did it alone, without any help. He's not as great as the media makes him out to be, John interjected, scratching the back of his neck in a gesture reminiscent of a certain blonde ninja. The truth is that I was very lucky to get out of those missions alive. Chat aside, Naruto proceeded to introduce John to his friends. The camaraderie was instant. If Naruto considered John a friend, then he was their friend too. You have many friends. I could barely count mine on one hand, John commented with a humble smile. Wow, RWBY exclaimed, surprised. Is that true? She asked, pointing to the scroll of hers that displayed a headline. Freshman, John Arc saves a convoy of Atlas soldiers from the White Fang. With a mischievous smile, Naruto added a touch of irony to the conversation. It seems that I not only have a gift for words, but also for deeds. But don't worry, I won't let fame change me. After all, what would a hero be without his loyal team? Yang interjected skeptically, that doesn't seem so impossible. Blake, with a raised eyebrow, questioned, why would such a mission be impossible? You see, the White Fang was led by Adam Taurus, and they had stolen state-of-the-art weaponry from Atlas. I went alone, so it was practically a suicide mission. Even the Atlas hunters refused to go, since it was certain death. John explained seriously. Hearing the name Adam Taurus made Blake shudder. So, you fought Adam Taurus? Biome, he was about to kill me, John said, showing with his fingers how close he was to his end. RWBY, impressed, exclaimed, it's amazing that you're friends with someone like that, Naruto. John, scratching the back of his neck modestly, brushed it off, it's no big deal. Don't put yourself down, John, said a voice, and everyone turned to look at the newcomers. Guys, you found Penny, John announced, clearly excited. Friend RWBY, how are you? Penny greeted affectionately. John, surprised, commented, it seems like they already know each other. I guess you met her when you escaped from me. Penny, in a barely audible tone of voice, added, I just couldn't be closer to you. Naruto, meet my teammates, John began, pointing to Flint Cole, a dark-skinned young man with dark brown eyes, rectangular sunglasses, and a fedora with a blue trim. He was wearing a vest over an unbuttoned white shirt, with a loose tie, dark pants, silver shoes, and a glove on his left hand. And this is Neon Cat, he continued, introducing a light-skinned girl with green eyes and red-orange hair with blue stripes. As a feline faunus, she had a pink cat tail that became lighter towards the tip of it. She wore a light blue tank top over a purple bra, purple shorts under a pink combat miniskirt, and a white belt with a smiley buckle. Her hair was styled in 2 pigtails. And to conclude, Penny Polendina. We have come to join the celebration of the Vital Festival. I went ahead with Penny for safety reasons, although at that moment I did not understand the entire situation. We were waiting for the rest of the team, John finished with a look that still denoted some confusion. Naruto, with a broad gesture, invited the group to follow him. Come on, there's a lot I want to show you, he said enthusiastically. Of course, everyone responded in unison, ready to follow Naruto on his journey. As they prepared to walk, John stopped abruptly, captured by the sight of a young woman with black hair and eyes that glowed with a yellow-orange glow, reminiscent of dancing flames. She looked at him too, and for a brief moment, time seemed to stop. However, she looked away and continued on her way, leaving John lost in a sea of thoughts, feeling a strange familiarity with her. Cindy, he murmured almost inaudibly. John, Naruto called him, breaking him out of his reverie. Is everything okay, John? Naruto asked, noticing his friend's distraction. Yes, everything is fine, John responded with a forced smile, trying to hide his confusion. Come on, it was just a moment of distraction. The conversation between the friends continued. Jokes flew as they explored the surroundings, each adding their own nuance to the colorful mosaic of personalities. John, although still thoughtful about the fleeting encounter, was carried away by the group's joy, determined to enjoy the festival and the surprises it would bring. Ozpin, said a voice that carried both seriousness and a hint of joy as it approached Director Ozpin's seat. The office was bathed in the golden light of the evening, filtering through the large windows and lending an almost mystical air to the place. General, responded Ozpin with a respectful tone, rising from his seat with the grace of someone who had led countless battles, not only on the field but also in the corridors of power. He approached the general, extending his hand in a gesture of camaraderie. Let's dispense with formalities, shall we? It's been an eternity since we last met in person, said the newcomer, breaking any protocol with a smile. James, then, conceded Ozpin, and the two men shook hands, their smiles reflecting the camaraderie of old friends who shared a past filled with untold stories. And Glinda, how have you been? James inquired, turning his head toward the imposing figure of the woman standing nearby. Her posture was that of an unyielding and fierce warrior. James, she replied in a flat and serious voice, each syllable seemingly carved in stone. Well, I'll take my leave. With a fluid and elegant movement, Glinda turned away, her cape billowing behind her like a flag in the wind. James Ironwood watched as Glinda exited the director's office, then turned his gaze back to Ozpin. She hasn't changed, has she? Is she still angry about the last time? Ozpin simply shook his head, his expression that of someone enjoying a private joke. She holds quite a grudge against you. You're fortunate she doesn't express it physically, because what you did that day, it's not easily forgiven. It wasn't my fault. I don't know how many times I have to repeat it. Her sister drugged me. I didn't have full control of my body, James defended himself, his voice rising in a mix of frustration and desperation. Yes, I also tried to explain that to Glinda, but I suppose women can be somewhat irrational, said Ozpin, his tone suggesting he was treading on dangerous ground with such words. Ozpin simply sat back down at his desk and steepled his fingers. Very well, James. Could you explain why there's a military presence throughout the entire kingdom of Vale? The council put me in charge of security for the festival, James explained, his voice hardening as if carrying the weight of immense responsibility. But why so much weaponry? It wasn't necessary, Ozpin questioned, his furrowed brow reflecting genuine concern. I work in the best interests of the kingdom, affirmed James, his gaze unwavering, the look of a man convinced of his mission. Ozpin exhaled a sigh that seemed to carry the burden of a peaceful world teetering on the edge of suspicion. You know we're in times of peace, James. If you bring in weaponry like this, people will start talking. Better they talk than they weep. I'd rather be the villain in their narrative if it means keeping them safe, retorted James Ironwood, his voice a bastion of resolve, leaving no room for debate in his defensive strategy. Furthermore, continued General Ironwood, his gaze lost in the horizon of ominous possibilities looming over them, if what Kiro says is true, we're in serious trouble. If what Kiro says is true, we'll handle it with cunning and caution, Ozpin interrupted, his tone that of a master who had witnessed the same mistake made by impetuous students too many times. You're being too complacent. We must act before tragedy catches us off guard, James insisted, his concern palpable in every word. No, James. I know the ending of this story better than anyone, and we won't proceed hastily, Ozpin said, his voice a calm river amidst the storm. Very well, James finally conceded. I'll trust your judgment. But don't make me say, I told you so. Quote. Thank you for understanding, my friend. Now, tell me about Kiro. James changed the subject, seeking news of their ally. Considering the circumstances, Kiro is doing well. He only has a fracture in his left arm. It's impressive that someone managed to injure him like that, Ozpin commented, still astonished by the news. From what I understand, this Sasuke fellow is a formidable adversary. He bested Kiro, and to think that someone of such caliber is loose in the kingdom. We know nothing about him except for his distinctive attire. A white mask and a black cloak as dark as the night, Ozpin reflected, his mind analyzing every detail. This is complicated. In fact, the most concerning part is that he's affiliated with Roman Torchwick, Ozpin added, revealing a disturbing connection. James simply sighed and ran a hand over his face. Damn, so he's part of the dust robberies. Yes, prices are skyrocketing in the kingdom. An economic collapse is imminent, and I fear the people's reaction, expressed Ozpin, his concern for the well-being of the populace evident. An Amber? Ironwood inquired, shifting focus to another urgent matter. Ozpin sighed heavily, lowering his head. She's still the same. Her vital signs weaken with each passing minute. We must act, because we know all too well that whoever attacked her will come to finish what they started. In the silent library of Beacon, the air was charged with tension and concentration. Teams RWBY and JNPR had gathered for an afternoon of strategy and camaraderie, represented in an intricate board game spread out before them. While Team RWBY engaged in a battle of wits, Blake was absorbed in the pages of the latest volume of Naruto, a series that, to the surprise of many, had gained unusual popularity among the female audience thanks to its Ika publications. What no one in the room knew was that the author behind the pseudonym was Naruto himself, a secret he carefully maintained. On the other hand, Team NNPR seemed divided in their activities. Nora and Ren had opted for a moment of tranquility, leaving Pyrrha and an enthusiastic Naruto immersed in their own personal duel. Although what began as a friendly competition quickly turned into a battle of taunts and shared laughter, especially for Pyrrha, who found deep joy in these moments with her leader. Come on, Pyrrha, do you really think you can stop the advance of my empire? It's spreading uncontrollably, and I doubt your fortresses can hold out much longer, Naruto taunted with a triumphant smile. Shut up, Naruto. My mountain bastions are impregnable, and my fleets dominate the coasts. I still control vast lands in the south, Pyrrha replied, her voice firm but her cheeks tinged with a slight blush. What a pity, said Naruto with feigned compassion, moving a piece on the board. It seems your coasts have fallen. I'm one step away from conquering you, Pyrrha. Won't you offer more resistance? I could almost think you want to be defeated. Pyrrha blushed even more, but her gaze was defiant. In your dreams, Naruto. Your northern walls will fall before my assault. Try it, Pyrrha. Really, I want you to, Naruto challenged her, his tone full of defiance and fun. It was then that Sun Wukong's voice echoed in the room, interrupting the tension of the game. Hello, friends, he greeted, accompanied by a figure who stood out for his colorful attire. Let me introduce someone. This is my friend Neptune Vasilius. Neptune, a teenager with bronzed skin and an imposing stature, confidently made his way forward. His dark blue eyes shone intensely under strands of light blue hair combed to the right, contrasting with the shaved sides of his head. He dressed with youthful elegance. A white shirt adorned with a black tie, over which he wore a red jacket with black lapels. On his back, a circular silver emblem stood out, hinting at the place where his weapon rested. Completing his outfit, navy blue jeans with black protections and gray boots. Hello, how are you, Snow Angel? Neptune greeted, approaching Weiss with a charming smile. But Weiss, engrossed in her game against Yang, barely paid him any attention, her concentration broken only by the laughter of Pyrrha and Naruto. The couple's happiness seemed to create a world of their own around them, oblivious to the others, which caused Weiss to frown. However, upon noticing Neptune's presence, her attention shifted to him, curious about his words. It seems the game is getting interesting, Neptune commented, observing the board with a playful smile. Any chance you'll let me join the fun? Weiss turned to Neptune, a mocking smile appearing on her lips. Maybe, if you promise not to distract us more than you already have, she said in a sarcastic but kind tone. And tell me, Neptune, where are you from? Well, I come from. There you are, Naruto. A voice interrupted from the entrance of the library. It was John, flanked by his team. It looks like you're engrossed in that game again. Yes, do you remember when we played at your house with your sisters? Of course, I lost many times, but I learned a lot. Neptune, quickly losing interest in the conversation with Weiss, turned to John with enthusiasm. I can't believe it, it's you. John responded, visibly confused. John, the immortal, it's you. Yes, that is me, John admitted, his voice tinged with embarrassment. It's an honor to meet you, said Neptune, shaking John's hand vigorously. Is it true that you used to take poison as a child to become immune to toxins? John looked at him incredulously and replied dryly. No, of course not. I'm pretty sure taking poison would kill me. Laughter echoed in the Beacon Library, a camaraderie echo that filled the room. Ren couldn't help but join the chorus of laughter, his usual composure broken by the absurd comment. John, with unusual seriousness, approached Naruto, who was still immersed in his strategic duel with Pyrrha. Naruto, I need to ask you another favor. You've been a great help so far, but there's something else I need. Naruto nodded, without taking his eyes off the board. Tell me, what do you need? He asked in a low tone, maintaining the confidentiality of the conversation. I want you to help me master the fourth gate, John confessed in a whisper. Naruto stopped his move, surprised, and turned to look at John directly. Have you reached the fourth gate? Naruto inquired, impressed. Yes, it was difficult, but I did it. Naruto murmured a barely audible, wow, and a contained laugh was heard in his mind. You were not wrong with him, there is something unique about him. It seems that adapting ninja techniques to the aura was not so far-fetched, commented the fox. Aura and chakra have their similarities, although learning ninja techniques with aura is an almost impossible feat. But John has achieved it, driven by his desire for strength, Naruto reflected. With an approving smile, Naruto nodded. Of course, I'll help you. We'll start early tomorrow. John, relieved and grateful, responded. Thank you for the reference videos, I would have been lost without them. You're welcome. It's a pleasure to help you on your path to becoming a great hunter. Thank you for everything, friend. Really, thank you, John insisted, his gratitude evident. You don't need to thank me. I only provided you with the tools. Your progress is your merit, Naruto stated humbly. John nodded, but before Naruto could resume his game, he raised his voice for everyone to hear. And one more thing. I would like to face you in combat. The bustle in the room stopped suddenly, and all eyes fell on the two young men. I want to see how far I've come, and there's no better way to find out than by facing you, friend. Naruto showed a challenging smile. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Let's wait for the next combat class. I look forward to your challenge. And I await yours, John replied, equally defiant. The conversation between John and Naruto wasn't just an exchange of words, it was a testament to their growth and the promise of a future challenge they both longed for. In the quiet sanctuary of the library, bonds of friendship and mutual respect were woven with every shared gesture and glance. Teammates and adversaries alike gathered together, creating a bond that only those who had shared the heat of battle could understand. As the board game progressed, with Pyrrha patiently awaiting her turn, the anticipation of future challenges filled the air with an almost tangible tension. Flint, with an expression of resignation, broke the silence. Here we go again, he commented. Neon nodded, his voice full of amusement. Yes again. RWBY curiously leaned forward. What do you mean? Neon gave him a meaningful look. Although it may not seem like it, John has a rivalry with your friend Naruto. Even though they are not together, he trains in the hope of being able to challenge him and, perhaps, defeat him one day. Flint nodded respectfully. He is admirable, truly. He trains to exhaustion with the sole purpose of reaching Naruto. Yang, with a gesture of disbelief, intervened. I don't think John is a match for Naruto. I've seen Naruto fight. His strength is amazing. Immortal or not, I doubt John can surpass him. Penny, however, gently disagreed. You may be right about John's chances, but I have observed his interactions. Naruto also sees John as his rival. The door to the RWBY team's room opened with a bang, and Yang, with a mix of frustration and worry, couldn't help but express her regret. We shouldn't have let him play. RWBY, always the optimist, responded with a defiant smile. You're just upset because John beat you, defending Naruto's friend. Blake, who had once again tried to withdraw discreetly, stopped dead when she heard Weiss's voice. Stop there, Blake. You've been quieter and more distant than usual lately, and although I know it's your style, it's already worrying me, so please share with us, what's happening to you, Blake Belladonna. With a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of the world, Blake turned to face her companions. I just can't understand how everyone can be so calm, she confessed with a voice that barely hid her concern. Are you still worried about Torchwick? RWBY asked, her tone filled with genuine concern that reflected the depth of their friendship. Torchwick, the White Fang, there are things you don't know because they were never officially announced, Blake revealed with a seriousness that chilled the room. But there's someone else, a damned masked man. Do you remember why I ended up in the infirmary? It wasn't for fighting Torchwick. It was that masked man who fought with me. Yang, trying to lighten the mood with her characteristic brazenness, joked. Well, I don't think he was that strong. I mean, you were surrounded by a group of White Fangs. But Blake interrupted her, her voice firm and her eyes burning with an intensity she rarely showed. It wasn't like that. He fought alone against me. The others were stealing while he held us back, me and Sun. He treated us like children, and he wasn't even fighting seriously. He was just playing with us. Remembering the confrontation, Blake hugged herself, trembling at the memory of the feeling of helplessness that overwhelmed her when facing that enemy for the second time. And frankly, I can't be calm knowing that such a person is loose. Blake's words, laden with a gravity that cut to the bone, faded into a silence that was in itself a declaration of the seriousness of their situation and the shared resolution to face the challenges ahead. Ozpin has told us not to worry, Yang intervened in a tone that tried to be comforting, he will take care of everything. But Blake, with a look that reflected her deep knowledge of the White Fang, replied firmly, I don't think so, he doesn't know the White Fang like I do. The companions exchanged glances that revealed a tacit understanding of the tension looming over them. Weiss let out a heavy sigh, as if trying to release the burden of responsibility she felt. Look, between the nightclub fight seeker, the criminal pursuer, and the freedom fighter, it seems I have to be the voice of reason. We are students, she emphasized, making sure her message resonated clearly, and we are not ready to face something like this. Blake, with a passion burning in her eyes, exclaimed, and we may never be. Enemies won't wait for us to graduate. They're out there, she said, pointing to the invisible horizon beyond the walls, planning their next move. RWBY, with a smile that tried to instill courage, threw a question into the air. So, who's in favor of facing a criminal organization that could destroy Vale? Say, I. Yang, with her characteristic enthusiasm, exclaimed, yes. Pointing to Blake with a gesture of approval. I love it when you get aggressive. RWBY, however, could only sigh at the lack of unanimous response. Weiss, with a tone that mixed resignation and a touch of emotion, admitted, I suppose it will be interesting. At that moment, RWBY, suddenly remembering something important, exclaimed, oh, I forgot my game. And ran out of the room. As she ran down the hallway, she unexpectedly collided with someone. RWBY, finding herself on the floor, looked up at the figures she had collided with. I'm so sorry, she said quickly, her voice tinkling with a mix of embarrassment and surprise. No problem, but you should be more careful where you walk, replied a kind voice, extending a hand to help her up. What are you doing here? RWBY asked innocently. We're visitors, was the simple response. RWBY processed the information, her mind working at full speed. Ah, you're exchange students. Yes, we come from Haven, confirmed one of the girls. But I think we've gotten lost, added another voice, with a tone that suggested it might not be an accident. At that moment, a familiar voice called from behind the group, RWBY. It was John, holding RWBY's forgotten game. Naruto asked me to bring it to you. Thank you, John, you didn't have to do that, RWBY responded, her gratitude evident in her voice. John approached and handed the board game to RWBY. You should be less distracted, it's a big problem, he joked. RWBY laughed and touched her head, embarrassed by her oversight. Oh, Right, sorry, I haven't introduced myself, said John, turning his attention to the students RWBY had bumped into. He looked closely at the girl with black hair and yellow-orange eyes. They said nothing, but their gazes intertwined in an eloquent silence. The black-haired girl frowned, her friendly smile had disappeared. Nice to meet you, said John, extending his hand. My name is John. The girl observed John's extended hand in silence, making no move to shake it. Instead, she crossed her arms and walked away without a word. Mercury, Emerald, let's go, the girl called, and her companions, after exchanging a glance, obediently followed her. Wow, that was a bit rude, commented RWBY, watching them walk away. John stood watching the silhouette of the girl walking away, with the feeling that he had seen her somewhere before. A glimmer of recognition crossed his mind, but certainty slipped through his fingers like sand. In the heart of their refuge, Team RWBY's room, the four heroines were dressed in unusual clothing, preparing for a secret expedition aimed at revealing the sinister machinations of the White Fang. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation and the air vibrated with the promise of adventure. We must have a meticulously laid out plan, shouldn't we? RWBY asked, her voice a murmur of expectation. Weiss stood up from her bed with the dignity conferred by her lineage. We, RWBY, will go to CCT in search of clues and anomalies, thefts and sightings linked to the White Fang or Torchwick that may be hidden in the company's archives. Schnee, he declared with a glint of pride in his eyes. Given my ancestry, I don't expect to encounter obstacles. Blake, with the calm of a shadow that slips through the night, intervened. The White Fang usually convenes clandestine assemblies to give orders and seduce new followers. If I manage to infiltrate, I will be able to unravel its enigmas. Yang, rising with the vitality of a fire that cannot be quenched, proclaimed, I have a contact who is a veritable well of secrets about the ins and outs of Vale, she said with a confident smile. It won't be difficult to get information from him. Blake, with a sly look, hinted, let me guess, does that contact frequent the same club where Naruto used to ply his trade? Yang, with a hint of doubt, replied, no, of course not. Perfect. We'll gather at sunset near Yang's meeting point to exchange what we've discovered. Let's get to work, RWBY exclaimed, her enthusiasm contagious. Yes, they chanted in unison. Suddenly, Sun made his entrance with the grace of a feline. Sun, what are you doing here? Yang exclaimed, her surprise evident. It's simple, it's a trick that I master perfectly, Sun replied with a mischievous smile. Weiss, with a censorious tone, inquired, what exactly do you do, perfectly? Sun, with the confidence of someone who knows he is essential in any plot, stated, it's time to give that scoundrel what he deserves. Blake advanced, her stance that of a born leader. I'm sorry, Sun, but this is a mission for the team. RWBY, with a worried expression, added, sorry, Sun, but we don't want to involve any more friends in this. Sun, with a smile that defied logic, replied, that's absurd. Friends are precisely for these occasions, that's why I brought Neptune with me. What? They all exclaimed in unison, looking out the window to discover Neptune, who stood firm against the railing, fighting his vertigo. Hello, Neptune greeted with a forced smile, while Team RWBY looked at him with a mixture of disapproval and amusement. How did you get here? RWBY asked, her curiosity palpable. Neptune, with a smile that could not hide his embarrassment, answered, I have my methods. But, seriously, would you let me in? Team RWBY sighed collectively, nodding in resignation at the unexpected company. Arguing with you is useless, Sun, RWBY said with a tone that denoted a mix of exasperation and affection. Okay, Blake will go with Sun, Neptune and Yang, and Weiss will come with me. Alright, let's get to work. They exclaimed, and the air was filled with renewed determination. On the bustling streets of Vale, Naruto and John walked with an air of confusion, surrounded by their companions who watched them with a patience that bordered on amusement. So, what exactly is the purpose of our visit here? Naruto asked, his curiosity as palpable as his energy. Yes, friends, what adventure awaits us in this city? John seconded, his tone full of expectation. The group exchanged knowing glances before Ren, with the calm that characterizes him, responded, it is a day to relax, to put aside the swords and enjoy the peace of the city. Naruto, with a theatrical gesture towards himself and John, inquired, but why us? Why now? Nora, with a frown and hands on her hips, replied, Naruto, you have been training with John since dawn. And what's wrong with that? Naruto asked, his feigned innocence fooling no one. Nothing would be bad if it weren't for the fact that they do it constantly. Nora exclaimed, her voice resounding with a mix of exasperation and affection. Exactly. Flynn intervened with a vigorous nod. Since dawn broke, you two have been in an endless training frenzy. If it weren't for classes, I doubt you would have paused. You've been so engrossed that you even skipped lunch. Naruto and John exchanged glances, and, oh, of understanding escaping Naruto's lips. I understand, John said. His tone was that of someone who had just solved a mystery. But how long until we reach our destination? Neon, with a playful smile, revealed, it's an arcade room. The two blondes' eyes lit up with the excitement of a child in a candy store. Are you taking us to the new arcade that just opened? Naruto exclaimed. His enthusiasm was contagious. Yes, the group confirmed with knowing smiles. Thank you, friends. Naruto and John shouted in unison, their gratitude echoing in the streets. Neon murmured with a wry smile. These two are like two drops of water, and everyone nodded, sharing a silent laugh at the similarity between the two enthusiastic friends. Wow, it's about time you guys arrived, said a voice. The two blondes looked towards the new addition who was waiting near the arcade. The arrival of Ciel Soleil, a figure known for his distinctive blue beret and imposing presence, broke the monotony of the wait. John, with the exuberance of a puppy, ran towards her and picked her up in a spinning hug, as if she were reuniting with an old friend lost in time. Come down, John, please. Ciel protested, his face tinted with a blush that spoke of surprise and unexpected closeness. Ciel, where have you been? John asked, his voice tinged with genuine affection. Ciel, with the grace of a dancer, landed softly on the ground, her combat attire a striking contrast to the informality of the place. My apologies, I was with my team, he responded with a smile that could not hide his pride in his teammates. John, without losing an ounce of his enthusiasm, put a brotherly arm around her. I want you to meet a great friend of mine, she said, pointing at Naruto with a wide gesture. The famous Naruto that you've told me so much about? Ciel asked, his curiosity piqued by the previous stories. Naruto, extending a hand in a gesture of camaraderie, greeted. Hello, nice to meet you. Ciel, with a courtesy that reflected his upbringing, shook the offered hand. The pleasure is mine, he replied with a smile that illuminated his face. Today is a day to enjoy. John exclaimed, his voice ringing with the promise of fun. Naruto echoed the shout with equal fervor, and the group noted, once again, the similarity between the two. They really are like two drops of water, Flynn murmured, his tone full of irony and affection. I'm surprised they're not real brothers. The laughter that followed was an echo of shared joy, as the group entered the arcade's maze of lights and sounds, ready to leave the worries of everyday life behind and immerse themselves in the world of games and laughter that awaited them. So, is this a White Fang congregation? Curious, I've never wondered, but why the choice of masks? Sun asked with a mix of curiosity and caution. Masks are more than just a costume, Blake replied solemnly. They are an emblem, a transformation into the monsters that society fears we are. Wow, that's pretty grim, Sun commented, his voice tinged with palpable unease. However, with determination, she put on the distinctive mask of the White Fang alongside Blake and together they walked into the meeting. They soon realized that among the future members there were many civilians, simple sympathizers of the cause. So, how is all this supposed to work? Sun asked, his voice barely above a whisper. And what's the big plan? Simple, Blake answered with mechanical quickness, we stay in the shadows and wait for them to reveal their true intentions. A recognizable silhouette emerged on the stage. It was Roman Torchwick, and next to him, a familiar masked man. They decided to remain silent, avoiding being discovered. It wasn't long before Roman began his speech. As you well know, this is Atlas's new barrier against the threats of the world, Roman announced, and at that moment he presented the Paladin, the new weapon of the Atlasian army. Blake couldn't hide his shock. How had Roman gained access to such an arsenal? Now, I know you have your reservations about humans, Roman continued, his tone of contempt toward humanity barely veiled, and I understand them, because let's face it, humans can be despicable. But there is something that unites us. Disdain towards those in power, those who make the decisions without caring about sacrificing anyone to protect their privileges. So, even if it is human, I assure you that my sincerity is genuine. Despite our differences, I consider you my comrades, he concluded with a sly smile. All right, Sasuke, show them what's next, Roman indicated. Of course, Mr. Roman, the masked man responded, advancing towards the microphone. There he is, Blake murmured, her suspicion evident. What is he up to? You heard the man, he doesn't plan anything, Sun replied sarcastically. Yes, of course, as if I were the king of Vale himself, Blake said with a mocking tone, while his eyes rolled in an expression of disbelief. It is evident that he is lying to us. The atmosphere was electrified with palpable tension, each member of the White Fang eagerly awaiting Sasuke's words, wondering what unexpected twists the night would bring. The masked figure took the stage with theatrical confidence. Hello, dear comrades of the revolution. How are you doing? It seems like an eternity since the last time we saw each other. Exclaimed the masked man with exaggerated enthusiasm. Who the hell is he addressing? Sun murmured, narrowing his eyes suspiciously, fearing he already knew the answer. Blake has discovered us, he is pointing us out. Keep calm and play the game, Blake whispered, trying to appease Sun. He could be referring to any of us. No, he's pointing directly at us, Sun insisted, his voice barely above a whisper. Yes, Blake admitted, her hand resting discreetly on the handle of her concealed weapon. Oh, I wanted to personally invite you to this very special event. But, unfortunately, you were out of reach, the masked man continued with a malicious smile. You will understand that this is a private matter, so you will have to excuse us while we escort you out. In an act of desperation, Blake pulled out his gun and shot one of the spotlights, plunging the place into darkness. What a brilliant idea, he thought sarcastically, knowing that most of the faunus present could see in the dark. Just as they were about to flee, a figure hugged them from behind with unnerving familiarity. Hey, friends, why are you so quick to leave my little party? I won't hurt you. Unless, of course, you decide to start an altercation. In an instant of chaos and alarming proximity to the masked man, Blake expertly pulled out her gun and aimed it directly at Sasuke's head. With reflexes that defied belief, he deflected the shot. The masked man's grip relaxed, and without wasting a second, Blake and Sun rushed towards the nearest window, fleeing the warehouse and blending into the shadows of the night. These young people today, so impetuous, the masked man murmured, shaking his head in disdain. Mr. Roman, I think it's time for us to leave. Here. His voice faded into the air, interrupted by the sudden action of Roman, who, without warning, climbed onto the Paladin Atlasiano and launched a fierce chase after the fugitives. The masked man remained motionless, observing the scene with a stillness that contrasted with the surrounding chaos. Although his face was hidden, the surprise must have been evident, since the hunt seemed like an unnecessary excess. Is this really happening? The masked man exclaimed, his voice full of disbelief. There was no need for such a spectacle, Mr. Roman. At that moment, as if out of nowhere, Neo appeared next to the masked man, his presence as silent as a shadow. Looks like we should assist our boss, the masked man suggested, but Neo simply shook his head, a playful smile gracing his face. And why not? He asked, as she pulled out a small ticket and waved it in front of her face. Sasuke, recognizing the ticket, felt in his pockets and anywhere else he might have kept something. When did you steal it from me? He asked, although he knew perfectly well when it had happened, but he wanted to play along with the cunning Neo. She responded with a smile and a shrug. Okay, you can keep the ticket, but I want my cut, he said. 40%, he proposed, but she shook her head. So, 20%. She seemed to consider it for a moment, touching her chin thoughtfully, before nodding in agreement. Excellent, will you accompany me to help Roman? He asked, but she denied again. Ah, so you're going to claim the prize on your own. Okay. But please don't be late, he said. She nodded once more and vanished into thin air, as mysterious in her departure as in her arrival. Night fell on the nightclub, and the atmosphere vibrated with the energy of the music and the twinkling lights. Junior, with his usual expression of professionalism, greeted the newcomer with forced courtesy. Good evening, how can I help you? But his face quickly transformed from helpful to visibly irritated when he recognized her. It's you, the quarrel seeker. What do you want now? Yang, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, responded with mock surprise. Come on, Junior, please, we're friends. But Junior was not up for games. No, we are not friends. The last time you came here, you only brought problems. She crossed her arms, maintaining her intimidating smile. Well, you know why I came. Junior sighed, resigned. For information, I suppose. That's right, Yang confirmed, nodding her head. We want everything you know about Roman Torchwick. At that moment, Neptune, with a smug air, rested his fist on the counter, trying to appear imposing. Junior shot him a look of disdain. Please, kid, really. This isn't the first time they've tried this. Be a little more original next time. Neptune, without a word, withdrew her arm from him and hid behind Yang. So, what are you going to do? Yang asked defiantly. Junior, with forced calm, replied, I have no reason to fight you now. You're in luck, I don't have the courage or the time to deal with you. So, tell me, what do you want? We want everything about Roman Torchwick, Yang repeated, firmly. Junior raised his shoulders in a gesture of helplessness. Okay, but, I don't have anything. Yang frowned, dissatisfied. I want you to tell me the truth. Junior, exasperated, insisted. I'm telling the truth. I don't have the foggiest idea where Torchwick is. The last time I saw him, I lent him my men and didn't hear from him again. It's a shame, miss, but I can't help you. Yang moved closer to Junior, grabbing him by his tie. I feel like you're lying to me. The fatigue was evident in Junior's voice as he replied with a tone that sought serenity. Listen to me carefully. I'm not looking for trouble, and I'm telling you the truth. Why would I have any reason to lie to you? Torchwick has been a constant nuisance. Do you have any idea how much the dust price has risen? Biome, if I had any information, I'd give it to you immediately so you could apprehend him, but my hands are empty. Yang scrutinized him with a penetrating gaze, then, with a sigh of resignation, she dropped the tie. Well, I believe you, she said, and turned to leave the bar, with Neptune following close behind. Wait, a warning, Junior exclaimed, stopping Yang in her tracks. A masked guy, Sasuke, if I'm not mistaken, came looking for work recently. Listen carefully, if you come across him, whether by fate or bad luck, keep your distance. He may seem harmless, but he is a potential monster. He is charming, he will appeal to your kindness, so I suggest that you do not provoke a conflict. Keep the conversation to a minimum and walk away. Yang raised an eyebrow, clearly not impressed. If that's all, I'm leaving. But Junior insisted sternly. I'm serious, it would be better if you call Naruto to back you up. That masked man is not someone to play with, and I assure you that there is no one better than Naruto Uzumaki to face him. Yang stared at him for a moment before leaving the club for good. So, what do we achieve? Neptune asked. Nothing more than a warning. Let's wait for the others to arrive, Yang replied, just as her scroll interrupted her thoughts. It was Blake calling. We need help. A damn giant robot is following us. Sun was heard shouting in the background. The tension rose as Yang processed the urgency in Blake's voice. And Roman is driving it. The situation had become critical, and the need to act was imminent. With Junior's warning still ringing in her ears, Yang knew that a confrontation was inevitable. The fate of his friends and the safety of the city hung in the balance, and only they could stop the threat that loomed over them. Weiss! RWBY exclaimed urgently, dodge! With feline agility, the Schnee avoided the colossal automaton's missile and counterattacked with an explosion of ice dust. Blake, what is this? How is it possible that a damn Atlesian paladin has appeared here in Vale? Weiss asked, her voice tinged with disbelief and fury. I have no idea, Blake responded, her voice lost in the chaos. Bumblebee! Their leader shouted, as Yang had arrived on his iconic motorcycle. Neptune was nowhere to be seen, and when Yang skidded next to her companions, he offered a cocky smile. How are you girls? Are you having fun without me? Yang, this is no time for jokes, Blake reprimanded sternly. A new missile approached, forcing everyone to evacuate the area. Yang narrowly dodged, but his motorcycle was not as lucky and was wiped out by the explosion. No, he shouted, and in that instant, his eyes turned a deep crimson. You'll pay me. Listen, girls, Roman shouted from inside the Atlesian paladin. You don't want to do this, retreat or I will have to escalate at maximum force. We must immobilize him, Blake said, her voice calm but firm. But how? Weiss asked, concern evident in her tone. I have a plan, RWBY announced, but was interrupted by another missile. This is ridiculous, Yang exclaimed, her anger growing by the moment. The paladin, surprisingly agile for his size, made it difficult for them to evade. Yang was less fortunate. A direct hit threw her against a concrete pillar, which crumbled under the impact. Yang! Weiss shouted, running towards her fallen companion. Don't worry, this is good, RWBY assured with a sly smile. What are you talking about? Weiss asked, confused. Yang gets stronger with every hit she receives, that's her semblance. She channels that energy, accumulates it, and makes it more powerful. It's what makes her unique, RWBY explained, her voice full of admiration. Yang stood up, her gaze burning and her hair flaming like the sun itself. It was an impressive sight. Wow, Weiss murmured, this is amazing. Of course it is. Now, as we were saying, we need to immobilize him. We'll use ice flower, RWBY said, and Weiss nodded, understanding the plan. Perfect, then let's give that pile of scrap a good dose of cold, Yang exclaimed, her wry humor shining even in the midst of the heat of battle. With the skill of an ice master, Weiss traced a glyph with her rapier, releasing a blast of ice dust that crystallized in the air. Meanwhile, RWBY, with determination in her eyes, adjusted crescent rose into sniper mode behind Weiss's blue glyph and fired at her. Each bullet was an icy arrow that stabbed into the robot, freezing its joints and slowing its movements. Roman, trapped inside the paladin, couldn't help but laugh. Ha ha ha, well played, Red. I expected nothing less from you, he said, his smile not malicious, but rather seeming like a twisted recognition of his skill. Following the coordinated attack, Weiss, RWBY and Blake unleashed a hail of bullets on the robot. Roman, partially immobilized, received the impact of each shot. He didn't anticipate, however, that behind him, Yang was approaching, her pent-up anger transforming into brute force. With a roar, he launched a punch that resounded like thunder. Collision boom. Collision. The ground cracked, and the smoke that covered everything dissipated with the shock wave. Surprisingly, Roman was unharmed. Wow, you're finally here. You've taken your time, Sasuke, he said with a mocking smile. Yang, with a mixture of surprise and fury, watched as her fist had been stopped by the masked man's hand, who held her blow with unexpected strength. Without warning, the masked man pushed her, sending her flying several meters. She recovered quickly and was reunited with her companions. The four warriors looked at the masked man cautiously. Is that him? Weiss asked, looking to Blake for confirmation. Yes, it's him. Keep your eyes open, Blake responded, her voice a strained whisper. The masked man, without uttering a word, took the hand that had blocked Yang's powerful blow to the other and began to shout exaggeratedly. Oh, by the seven seas. I can't believe it. That was a championship blow. I almost feel like you've broken my hand. By all the gods. You have enormous strength, miss. He exclaimed as he ran from one side to the other, waving his hand as if trying to get rid of the pain. Team RWBY watched the scene with a mixture of bewilderment and amusement. Are you sure this clown is the one who attacked you? Yang asked, unable to hide a mocking smile. Yes, I'm sure. He's a jester, but a jester with a power that shouldn't be underestimated, Blake responded seriously. Wow, that's obvious, Weiss added, eyeing the scene skeptically. Oh, continued the masked man, miss, you should moderate your strength. It could cause havoc if you don't learn to control that power, he said between laughs, clearly enjoying the moment. Is it me, or does that voice remind me a lot of Naruto's? Yang asked, seeking the complicity of her companions. Yes, it does have an oddly familiar air, Blake confirmed, frowning. At that moment, Roman Torchwick emerged from the paladin and stood next to Sasuke. All right, Sasuke, where is Neo? He asked with an impatient tone. She'll be there later, Sasuke replied calmly. You're kidding, Roman exclaimed, clearly annoyed. Because. Well, do you remember the ticket I won? The one with free ice cream for a year? Roman asked, hopefully. Yes, that same one. Well, it turns out that she stole it from me and went to claim her prize, Sasuke explained with a resigned smile. And it couldn't wait until tomorrow, Roman shouted, indignant. You know how she is. I can't control what she does, and neither can you, Sasuke said, shrugging. Roman sighed and nodded. Well, let's go. The bullhead will come for the paladin soon, he said, preparing to leave. But before they could turn around, a round of fire was fired at his feet. They're not going anywhere, Ruby declared, her gun pointed firmly at the two robbers. Roman sighed again. Listen, ladies, you don't want to start a fight now. Please leave. I'm giving you a chance. Listen to him, Sasuke intervened, with a tone of joy. Although we may seem like simple thieves, we have our principles. I suggest you leave, and this way you will avoid getting hurt. With the tension in the air palpable, Yang stepped forward with her semblance glowing brightly, ready to confront the masked man. Her attempts to hit him were in vain. He dodged each attack with disconcerting ease. Sasuke, in one swift movement, hit Yang's knee, forcing her to kneel. He looked up only to receive a blow to the forehead with the masked man's index finger. The impact was so powerful that Yang was knocked back several meters, crashing into Blake. Trying to get up, Yang hesitated, still disoriented from the blow. I warned you to be careful, Blake scolded, worried for her partner. The masked man advanced towards Team RWBY, his stance not threatening, but rather one of warning. Seriously, girls, I don't want to hurt you. Please leave now. Weiss, rapier in hand, responded defiantly. Do you think you'll intimidate us by hitting Yang? We've faced bigger challenges. You won't stop us so easily. Why do I always have to face stubborn people? The masked man's voice echoed behind Weiss, surprising her. She turned to face him, but she wasn't there. Her voice sounded again, this time to her left, but as she turned, she again found emptiness. Then, as if he were a ghost, the masked man reappeared in front of the entire team. What kind of witchcraft is this? It's too fast, Weiss exclaimed, bewildered. I have given you enough warning, ladies. This is your last chance. Stand down, the masked man insisted firmly. Words didn't stop the brave RWBY team. They launched into combat with a dance of coordinated movements and precise attacks. Sasuke, for his part, moved with a grace that seemed to defy the laws of physics, dodging and blocking every attempted strike. The moment he detected an opening, he did not hesitate to launch a counterattack, forcing the girls to retreat and rethink his strategy. The battle escalated further, with Team RWBY deploying all of their known skills and tactics. The air was charged with sparks of energy and the metallic sound of clashing weapons echoed across the battlefield. Despite his combined efforts, Sasuke seemed to always be one step ahead, his blurry silhouette moving between them like an elusive shadow. The fight was not only a physical confrontation, but also a mental duel, a chess game where each move had to be calculated with the utmost precision. Damn! Stop dodging! Yang shouted, consumed by anger. You are too impulsive, miss. Really, You should learn to control that temper, Sasuke responded with a calm that contrasted with Yang's fury. Her words were an echo of what Naruto had said to her in the past, and she tried to ignore them. You better, Yang started to say, but suddenly, she couldn't continue. The masked man's hand hit his windpipe, cutting off his breathing for a few critical moments. Very well, young lady, it seems that you leave me no choice but to teach you a lesson, said the masked man with a voice that brooked no reply. The masked man raised a hand and small flames sprang from each of his fingers. Yang tried to get back up, but the masked man placed his hand on Yang's stomach. Strangely, he didn't hit her, he just touched her, and Yang suddenly felt weaker. The blows and fatigue of the battle began to take an overwhelming toll on him, and suddenly, he began to spit out blood. What the hell? What did you do to me? He gasped with difficulty. It seems that you are not so strong anymore, right, miss? Said the masked man with a mocking smile. Yang, with great effort, looked up at him. Now you are a normal human, with no abilities and nothing that makes you special, Sasuke declared before kicking her in the face that left her sliding unconscious on the floor. Yang, RWBY shouted, worried for her sister. At that moment, Sasuke had to dodge a sword, as Blake appeared behind him. Wow, miss, I really thought I warned you that you shouldn't confront me. Why do you keep insisting? The masked man asked curiously. Let's stop you and put a stop to everything you're doing, Blake exclaimed with determination. But I already told you, I don't plan anything. The one who plans here is Mr. Roman. I simply work for him, Sasuke explained with disconcerting serenity. Blake attacked the masked man furiously, but he easily dodged her and grabbed her by the neck. He picked her up and slammed her into the ground, making a small crater. Blake was left unconscious in the crater, defeated. The masked man, with a sigh of fatigue after the absurd confrontation, urged the young combatants to reconsider their situation. Now, stay there, please, he said with a voice that denoted tiredness but also a hint of respect for the tenacity of his opponents. Now you two, ladies, pick up your companions and get out of here, he concluded, marking the end of the fight. RWBY, determination shining in her eyes, refused to give in. He is fast and his blows are very strong, she commented, evaluating the opponent. We will not give up. Weiss, without wasting a second, activated a glyph under RWBY's feet, enhancing her semblance and doubling her speed. RWBY launched herself towards the masked man with dizzying speed, but he, with supernatural agility, dodged her effortlessly. Surprise was painted on RWBY and Weiss's faces. Not even Weiss could keep up with RWBY's frantic movement, but the masked man made it seem trivial. Undaunted, RWBY attacked again and again, but he kept dodging, as if she were dancing to music that only he could hear. In a fleeting instant, as RWBY whizzed past the masked man, Sasuke caught her by the hood, stopping her in her tracks. The scene had a comical feel, as Sasuke held RWBY as if she were a naughty puppy. Before RWBY could react, Sasuke let go of her, and she backed away, aware of the danger she represented. He had defeated Blake and Yang with such ease that she would not be a challenge to him. The masked man, now behind her, raised his hand and slowly moved it towards RWBY. Just when she was about to touch her head, Roman intervened. Stop there, Sasuke. Enough, he exclaimed. Sasuke, obeying the order, patted RWBY's head in a gesture that bordered on paternal. Wow, really enough of all this. Please leave now, he said, and turned around to join Roman Torchwick. Roman observed the scene with a look that exuded fear. Why would he tremble at the situation? Weiss decided to ignore the mystery and approached her leader to help her up, noticing that RWBY was still in shock. Very well, Roman simply sighed. We have to go, Sasuke. The bullhead is arriving right now and we have to take this from here. At that moment, Roman saw the two girls and remained silent. He was analyzing them. He then closed his eyes tightly and clenched his fists. Sasuke, teach them a lesson, so this doesn't happen again. And please, don't hurt her too much, that part was whispered under her breath. Understood, Mr. Roman. Then the bullhead was going down towards where the two robbers were. The White Fang members of that ship took the paladin and put him on the bullhead and Roman went up with them. Sasuke watched as Roman walked away from that place and faced the two girls. I really don't want to do this, Sasuke said with a hint of reluctance in his voice, but I have a feeling you guys will keep coming back. So persuading you not to is the best course of action. The masked man made a strange hand position and put his left hand in his mouth, forming a small hole. Nothing they had expected could prepare them for this. Kaden. Gukakyu no Jutsu. An extraordinary fireball approached them. RWBY tried to dodge it, but her shock didn't let her move well. Weiss was still tired, so she didn't perform any glyphs because she had no energy left. So she took the leader from her and slowly walked her away from the fireball that was rapidly approaching them. She would have a little collateral damage, but nothing that she couldn't repair with the aura, and before the fireball hit them, she was cut in half. Weiss, RWBY, are you okay? said a voice, which they quickly recognized. Weiss looked up to see and noticed that it was Naruto. How did he get here? Or rather, why was he here? But it doesn't matter, he was happy to see him. Wow, looks like they got into trouble. Then Naruto Uzumaki simply observed the attacker. Naruto and the masked man faced each other with the tension cutting the air between them. Naruto, with an arrogant smile, radiated a confidence that seemed to defy the entire world. On the other hand, the masked man remained motionless, his silence was an enigma, a stillness that presaged a storm. Naruto, Weiss exclaimed, her voice tinged with urgency. Be careful, he's dangerous. Naruto nodded, his calm expression contrasting with the alarm in Weiss's voice. The masked man, however, murmured something inaudible. Neo, get me out of here, and as if he were made of glass, he fragmented into pieces, disappearing into thin air. How curious, Naruto reflected in a low voice, putting away his sword with a fluid gesture and turning to his companions. It seems that my real challenge is yet to come. It was an epic battle. RWBY exclaimed, regaining her composure. We will tell you everything, but first we must take Yang and Blake to the infirmary. Suddenly, the sound of sirens filled the air, announcing the arrival of the police. Ah, finally, Weiss exclaimed, relieved. The police are here. It seems that our fight is over, but when she turned, she noticed that Naruto was discreetly walking away. What do you think you're doing, Naruto? Weiss asked, her tone revealing a mix of confusion and annoyance. Look, it's not that I want to sound insensitive, but you all started this mess, Naruto explained, his gaze avoiding that of his companions. If they see me here, I'll be considered an accomplice, and I'd rather avoid more trouble. Naruto Uzumaki, don't you dare run away. Weiss exclaimed, her anger evident. Stay and help us take our companions to the infirmary. As you order, my lady, Naruto responded, his tone now humble and obedient, as he turned to face his responsibilities willfully imposed by Weiss. I don't understand how they thought it was a good idea to go investigate a White Fang cell. What were they thinking? Glinda's irritated voice echoed in the beacon infirmary. Glinda, there is no need to be so harsh, Ozpin intervened with his usual calm. This is the last straw, Ozpin, she exclaimed, hitting her knee in an angry gesture. These girls, always looking for problems. I don't understand it. The night before had been long and tense. Team RWBY had spent the entire afternoon in the infirmary, recovering from a battle that had been too close for everyone's comfort. Glinda, upon learning of a paladin's attack, had been furious, mainly at General Ironwood. But upon discovering that her own students were involved, her anger was diverted towards Team RWBY. Naruto, for his part, had been lucky. He had explained that his presence was a coincidence, that he had simply come to assess the situation. He had a solid alibi. He had been with his team and John's team all day. And the most outrageous thing is that they involved Mr. Uzumaki in this. But we didn't involve him. RWBY tried to protest, but fell silent under her teacher's stern gaze. Glinda, I think that's enough. They've been through a lot. Ozpin tried to calm the situation. Ozpin, please stop being so lenient with them, Glinda replied firmly. Ozpin didn't respond and approached Team RWBY, all lying on the stretchers in the infirmary. Blake and Yang had been the most affected, especially Yang, but they were all conscious. Ozpin took out a photograph of an unknown masked man. It seems that you had an encounter with this individual. Could you tell me everything you know? He asked. Team RWBY exchanged glances and nodded. But just as they were about to speak, the door to the infirmary burst open. There were the NNPR and CRDL teams, who had not been able to visit in the morning and were now barging in without regard for whoever was inside. Whoa, what do we have here? A superhero meeting or an emergency room? Nora joked, trying to lighten the mood as she entered with the rest of her team. The tension in the room eased a little with the arrival of friendly faces, although Glinda didn't seem to share the sentiment. Despite the odds, Team RWBY couldn't hold back a smile at their friend's dramatic entrance. Sometimes a dose of humor is precisely what is needed to confront the harsh reality of their lives as hunters in training. Team NNPR and CRDL, I ask you to stand down, Glinda said with barely contained fury. Excuse me, Miss Goodwitch, but our concern cannot wait. Our friends are hurt and we need to know how they are, Cardin expressed, surprising Glinda with his maturity, a change attributed to Naruto's influence. Mr. Winchester, your concern is commendable, Glinda responded with a rare smile, but it is imperative that we know what happened that night. Let them stay, Glinda, Ozpin interceded. Glinda, surprised, turned to him, but nodded understandingly, knowing that it was useless to try to convince him otherwise. They are your teammates, so we will make an exception this time. Now, please tell me what happened, Ozpin insisted to Team RWBY. Weiss took the floor, narrating in detail from the reckless decision to investigate White Fang, the pursuit of Blake, the confrontation with the robot and the mysterious masked man, known as Sasuke. Ozpin listened silently, remaining calm, while Glinda could not hide her fury at her students' irresponsibility. Unlike them, Team RWBY's friends were genuinely worried, and Pyrrha was the first to voice her concern. Why didn't they call us? They should have asked for our help, they didn't have to do it alone. We didn't want to involve them, Blake murmured, a tone of sadness in her voice, it was too dangerous. Precisely for that reason, they should have asked for help. Look at what happened to them, do you realize the seriousness of the situation? They could have lost their lives. Cardin exclaimed, shocking Team RWBY with his reprimand, especially since it came from someone they would never expect such concern from. I'm sorry, Yang expressed, trying to keep morale high, but we survived, and that makes us stronger. I'm afraid it's not that simple, Ozpin replied gravely. What do you mean, Director? RWBY asked, concern evident in her voice. Miss Xiaolong, I'm sorry to have to tell you this. But you must leave Beacon, Ozpin announced. A collective cry of disbelief echoed through the room. Yang was stunned, unable to process the news. But, Principal Ozpin, RWBY exclaimed, if it's for what we did, then Yang shouldn't be the only one punished. Exactly. Weiss intervened vehemently, we all participated in this, it's not fair to punish just one. It's completely unacceptable, Blake added firmly. Ozpin, however, was not swayed by the protests and addressed Yang directly, I think you already know that, don't you? Yang examined her body, anticipating the direction of the conversation, I'm not recovering like I should. Normally, the severity of my injuries would have healed in a night or two, but look at these bruises, they still linger. Ozpin took a scroll from the nightstand and unrolled it, Miss Xiaolong, you have lost your aura. The revelation left everyone shocked, but Yang responded with an arrogant smile, it doesn't matter, just reactivate it. I thought the problem would be bigger. Ozpin shook his head, his expression grim, we tried, Miss Xiaolong. We tried several times, 3 to be exact, and it didn't work on your body. But how is it possible? She asked, her voice tinged with confusion. Not even I can explain it, Ozpin admitted regretfully, but you must understand that she is completely normal now, just another civilian. We cannot allow her to fight the Grim and risk her life unnecessarily. But there has to be something we can do, Yang implored, her eyes shining with tears of frustration. The news of the loss of Yang's aura fell over Team RWBY like an inescapable shadow. The possibility that one of them could be stripped of his protective essence was something neither could assimilate. A dense silence filled the room, interrupted only by muffled sighs and whispers full of concern. I deeply regret having to tell you, but I find myself helpless. No Aura Master has been able to elucidate what has happened to you. It is a weight on my heart to tell you this, Ozpin expressed regretfully. And now what will become of me? If RWBY is here, who will watch over her? Yang said, as tears began to flow. RWBY walked over and wrapped her in a comforting hug. Suddenly, the door opened wide and a carefree Uzumaki walked in, oblivious to the tense atmosphere around him. Beside him, a John Ark insisted that his entrance had been disrespectful. Musical note. Make me forget her forever, make me forget her. Musical notes. Naruto sang, but his voice faded as he perceived the sepulchral silence. Seeing Yang crying, he quickly walked over and held her face in her hands. What happened to you, Yang? What happened? Do you feel bad? Why are you crying? Naruto asked, his voice tinged with concern. It's nothing, Naruto, don't worry, Yang responded, wiping away her tears and offering a smile to calm her friend. Don't be evasive, tell me what's happening, the blonde insisted, addressing everyone in the room. It's bad news, Naruto, Ozpin said. What are they, Director? Naruto asked. Miss Xiaolong has lost her aura completely, Ozpin revealed. And why don't they reactivate it? Naruto asked, confused. We have tried, but to no avail, Ozpin explained. I don't know what to do, Naruto. I think I'll have to leave Beacon, Yang murmured, her voice cracking with emotion. Don't say that, we will find a solution, don't give up, Naruto encouraged. I don't think there's a possible fix, RWBY intervened, not even the director has been able to fix it. Ozpin stood up from his seat, followed by Glinda, I'm sorry to say, Miss Xiaolong, but you must gather your belongings and leave tomorrow. Don't worry, we will provide you with a recommendation to any civil institution in the kingdom. You don't have to feel lost regarding their future. Yang clenched her fists, fighting the feeling of helplessness, and remembered Junior's warnings. Listen carefully, if you come across him, whether by fate or bad luck, keep your distance. He may seem harmless, but he is a potential monster. He is charming, he will appeal to your kindness, so I suggest that you do not provoke a conflict. Keep the conversation to a minimum and walk away. Don't worry, friends, I take responsibility, he. Yang's laugh sounded forced, loaded with a weight that she couldn't hide. I was reckless. I acted without thinking and now I face the consequences. I ignored the warnings, I felt invulnerable with my appearance and I did not reflect. And now, Ruby, I face the reality of leaving you. Tears welled up in her eyes again, and Ruby, moved, began to cry as well, joining the rest of Team RWBY in a silent lament. You know me, I have always been frank and direct, but this time my audacity has cost me dearly. That masked man hit me with such force that it left me breathless, I felt helpless and lost all ability to react, the voice of Yang trembled with every word. Naruto remained silent, watching the scene with a pain that was foreign to him. The image of Yang he had built, strong, brave, and perpetually cheerful, was crumbling before his eyes. Understanding human vulnerability was one thing, but witnessing Yang in such a state of desolation was something that affected him deeply, beyond what he could have imagined. Yang, he said, his voice reflecting unusual seriousness. She looked up, meeting Naruto's piercing blue eyes. Naruto had an idea, although he doubted its feasibility. It was a ninja technique, and applying it on a human being of this dimension could be a futile effort, since the results were uncertain. However, he decided to take the risk. Yang, he called softly, approaching her. Meticulously, he felt her neck, examined her teeth, and studied her eyes, searching for any clue that might guide her action. Yang, he repeated, making sure he had her attention. Yes, she responded, a mix of confusion and curiosity in her voice at Naruto's intense gaze. You can hit me later, if you want, he said with a crooked smile. But why would I hit you? She asked, not understanding what he meant. Without further ado, Naruto grabbed Yang's shirt and, in one swift, determined move, tore it in half, exposing her torso. Naruto! Weiss and Pyrrha exclaimed in surprise, while Ruby and Blake covered their mouths in shock. The boys looked away, respecting Yang's privacy, and Professor Goodwitch was so surprised that she couldn't find words to express her astonishment. Nora, for her part, covered Ren's eyes with her hands, in a protective gesture. Nah, Naruto! Yang shouted, indignant and surprised, her anger about to explode. But Naruto silenced her by placing a finger on her lips, stopping any reproach that might come. In one fluid motion, Naruto raised his right hand and, to everyone's surprise, his fingers lit up with blue flames. Yang watched, amazed, at the technique that seemed to be identical to the one the masked man had used against her. This is crazy, why am I doing this? Naruto wondered internally. Why do you have such a compassionate heart and care so much about that human? Maybe because if she had a heart problem, you would sacrifice yourself without thinking to donate your heart to her. Or maybe just because you are sentimental, Kurama commented with a tone of boredom. Thank you, Kurama. It's comforting to know that I can still feel empathy for others, Naruto responded. Don't be confused, Naruto. You are empathetic with good-hearted people. With the evil and cruel, you would have no qualms about leaving them to their fate, replied the fox. Naruto, deep in thought, recognized how time had shaped his perspective. I really have changed, he reflected with a hint of melancholy. In the past, I would have fought to save every soul, without distinction. Those days seem so far away now. Naruto, Kurama called in his mind. Yes, Kurama, he replied. Place some chakra in the girl's abdomen, he suggested. Because? Naruto asked, confused by the sudden request. Following his instinct and Kurama's guidance, Naruto focused his chakra on Yang's belly. To his astonishment, 5 tomo appeared, marking his skin like a mysterious seal. What is this? Weiss muttered, her surprise matched only by that of her companions. He expressed his bewilderment at the marks that looked like tattoos. What the hell is this? Yang exclaimed, equally surprised. Naruto, however, remained silent, processing the revelation. This is not possible, Naruto muttered. This is a 5-point seal, Kurama explained, his tone full of disbelief, but that's impossible, you're the only shinobi in this world. We'll leave that aside for now, Naruto decided, focusing his attention on helping Yang. He placed his hand, fingers still engulfed in blue flames, over the seal on Yang's abdomen. She shuddered at the contact, and a pulse of energy vibrated through her body. Within seconds, he felt a surge of strength and vitality, a heady sensation of renewed power. The marks on his belly slowly faded, as if they had never existed. Naruto carefully wrapped Yang in a sheet, covering her body with respect and consideration. Looks like we're done here, but just to be on the safe side, Naruto said, making sure of his work with a gentle tap on Yang's head. She blinked, surprised by the slight pain, but her aura glowed with a distinctive yellow glow. Headmaster Ozpin, could you check Yang's aura levels? Naruto requested. Ozpin nodded and, with his scroll in hand, examined Yang's aura. He watched in amazement as she was active and recovering. She wasn't restoring as quickly as one would expect, but it was clear that, in time, Yang would regain her full ability. This is impressive, Ozpin exclaimed, in admiration. Mr. Uzumaki, how did you achieve this feat? The room was enveloped in an expectant silence, all eyes fixed on the figure of Naruto, whose intervention had been as surprising as it was disconcerting. Yang, still covered by the blanket Naruto had placed over her, felt reborn, as if she had emerged from a deep slumber. The possibility of resuming her training and fighting again alongside her teammates infused the atmosphere with a palpable sense of hope. Naruto, with his hand on his chin, seemed deep in thought. Yang, he finally said. Yes, Naruto, what's wrong? She asked, still confused by recent events. I was never too interested in your battles, but this masked man you mention, what else do you know about him? Not much, just his appearance and that his name is Sasuke. Naruto kept a calm expression, but inside, the mention of that name shook him deeply. Sasuke was a name he never expected to hear in this world. What the hell? Kurama exclaimed from within. It's impossible, who else could use a 5-point seal here? Sasuke, that's what they said. But that's impossible, Kurama protested. Unless he too has been trapped in this world, like me. It's a remote possibility, but it can't be ruled out. The internal conversation between Naruto and Kurama continued, although for the others it only lasted a few seconds. Hey, that name doesn't sound familiar to me, Naruto said, feigning ignorance. Well, we're done here. Let's put the nonsense aside, we have classes tomorrow, so it's time to go, he announced, beginning to lead the rest of his team and the Cardinal team towards the exit of the infirmary. Wait a moment, Mr. Uzumaki, Ozpin interrupted. Yes, what do you need, Director? How did you do that with your hands? What? Naruto asked, maintaining his facade of ignorance. What he did to help Yang. I don't think it's appropriate to talk about how I touched my partner right now, Naruto joked, evading the question. Ozpin frowned at the answer. How did you manage to reactivate Miss Xiaolong's aura when even the most specialized personnel couldn't do it? Naruto gave a mischievous smile, knowing that his ability was something he couldn't easily explain in this world. Let's say I have more than one ace up my sleeve, Director. But relax, Yang is safe, and that's what really counts, he said with a mischievous smile, before heading confidently towards the exit. Mr. Uzumaki, it is imperative that you reveal to me how you learned that peculiar aura technique. Yang, who until then was sporting a radiant smile, changed to a serious expression and stopped Naruto with a firm voice. Principal Ozpin is right to ask. His voice became serious. That technique you used is identical to the one the masked man used against me. Where did you learn it? Naruto stared at her, his gaze wavering for a moment before reaching out for help. Damn it, Kurama, I need your help. The Kyuubi, with a sigh of resignation, replied, well, say this, without me you are useless. With feigned calm, Naruto responded, oh, this, he asked, raising his right hand which suddenly lit up with blue flames, this is called the 5-point seal. I developed it years ago while studying at the Empire Academy. I never showed it to my teachers because it was not designed for combat, but to prevent it. How is that possible? Ozpin asked curiously. Naruto extinguished the flame in his hand, it was created specifically to avoid conflict. When I apply this seal to my opponent, he is completely incapacitated. He becomes, so to speak, normal, and thus I avoid combat. Although it can also have the effect contrary, like opening the aura and so on. Ozpin nodded, processing the information. As for the masked man, I assure you that I have no idea, Naruto continued, his tone was convincing, worthy of an accomplished actor, courtesy of Kurama. I have traveled many places and met countless people. Some have learned tricks from me, and I have taught many during my travels through the remnant. It could be any of them. Ozpin watched Naruto carefully, analyzing his every gesture and expression for any hint of falsehood, but found none. I understand. That was easier than expected, Naruto mused to himself, without having to give a detailed explanation of how anyone else knew about the seal. Feigned ignorance is a subtle art, but it is only effective if your body sings the same song as your words, Kurama reflected, imparting a lesson in cunning. Anyway, RWBY, Weiss, Blake and Yang, please take care of yourselves and rest. Tomorrow will be another day and I hope to see you with renewed energy. Wait a minute, John exclaimed, stopping Naruto with an urgent tone. What's wrong? Naruto asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty at the sudden interruption. If you possessed such a formidable technique, why the hell didn't you use it on me? John demanded, his voice laden with reproach. What do you mean? RWBY inquired, her curiosity aroused by the accusation. John, with a gesture of exasperation, crossed his arms over his chest. As you well know, there are two ways in which a hunter can awaken his aura. The first, having another hunter do it for you, and the second, facing extreme danger that activates your aura in response to stress. And this fool, he exclaimed, pointing at Naruto, whose expression was a picture of confusion, he threw me off the top of a cliff. You did what? Weiss exclaimed, her voice reaching octaves of indignation. Come on, John, I thought we'd put that behind us, Naruto tried to appease. Of course I'm over it. John replied, his voice rising before he heaved a resigned sigh. But knowing that you had another option and you didn't use it. That bothers me. Don't repeat it, okay? I promise you, Naruto assured, although his mocking gesture did not go unnoticed. I saw that you're crossing your fingers. Well, at least you promise. That's enough to trust your word, John conceded, although not without some reluctance. Enough of all this, Yang interrupted, getting up from the stretcher still wrapped in the sheets. Naruto, I want to express my gratitude to you. There is no need, I would have done the same for any of you, Naruto responded humbly. Yang offered him a sweet smile, which Naruto returned with an equally affectionate look. They stayed like that for a long moment, silently communicating until Naruto broke the spell. It will be in the face, won't it? That's right, she confirmed with a mischievous smile. Please don't let it be too strong. I promise nothing, Yang replied, and without further ado, her fist shot towards Naruto's face, sending him flying through the door and crashing into the hallway wall. Yang! Everyone exclaimed in unison, surprised by the sudden violence. Ozpin simply shook his head, an amused smile playing on his lips, while Glinda expressed her disapproval with a frown. Miss Xiaolong, consider yourself punished. It's fine, I don't care. He had it coming, Yang replied disdainfully. She's right, Miss Goodwitch, Naruto intervened, sitting up and putting a hand to his nose. She doesn't need any more problems. I'm sure that any punishment I impose on her will be enough, so there's no need to add more. The entire team will take the consequences. Glinda clenched her fists, her expression a poem of frustration. Team RWBY, attend classes tomorrow as usual, Ozpin announced before leaving the room. What is happening, Miss Goodwitch? Naruto asked, his surprise evident. Nothing, they will not receive any additional punishment, she replied, her tone final. Why? Naruto insisted, seeking to understand. It's not worth trying to understand, Mr. Uzumaki, Glinda concluded, closing the topic. Before the stunned gaze of the spectators, Pyrrha Nikos launched herself determinedly towards the CRDL team, which was already in a combat position. With surprising agility, she slid her feet under those of Cardin Winchester, who, with his mallet raised, attempted to deliver an accurate blow. At the same time, Skylark opened fire, unleashing a storm of bullets. However, the red-haired warrior defended herself skillfully, using her shield to block the offensive and, in one fluid motion, she threw him hard towards Sky, hitting him directly in the head. Meanwhile, Dove Bronzewing emerged stealthily behind her, taking advantage of the distraction. But Pyrrha, with her fighter instincts, anticipated the attack. She spun around and, in one swift motion, kicked Dove in the ribs. Transforming her weapon into a javelin, she aimed it precisely at the left temple of her adversary, leaving him momentarily disoriented. At that critical moment, Cardin reappeared in front of her, launching a quick uppercut that Pyrrha failed to dodge. The impact of it made her flinch, but the fire-haired combatant recovered quickly and prepared for the aftershock. Cardin's every attempt to hit her was skillfully blocked. Her orange fists always met the firm resistance of Pyrrha's shield. With a graceful spin, Pyrrha raised her right leg and landed a kick to Cardin's chin, forcing him back. Without giving him time to react, she slammed her shield into the young man's face, leaving him stunned and falling to the ground. Throwing her shield back without looking, she heard the dull sound of metal hitting the face of Sky, who had attempted a surprise attack. With the determination of a tireless warrior, Pyrrha Nikos left no room for the recovery of Sky, who lay on the ground after receiving a devastating blow. At that critical moment, Russell Thrush saw her opportunity and attacked, her weapon landing hard on Pyrrha's abdomen. The force of her blow threw her several meters back, but she, with a resilience worthy of her reputation, quickly rose to her feet, ready to face the next challenge. Cardin Winchester, his mace ready for a killing blow, positioned himself behind Pyrrha. However, she, with her perception sharpened by countless battles, anticipated the attack and dodged it gracefully. Cardin's mallet hit the ground, creating a network of cracks that spread like spider webs. Pyrrha took advantage of Cardin's moment of vulnerability, stepping on his weapon with her left foot and digging it further into the ground, unbalancing him. In one fluid motion, she grabbed Cardin's hand, forcing him to lean towards the ground, and with a precise uppercut, sent him flying. Not content with that, Pyrrha jumped after him and, with a crane kick, slammed him to the ground with a force that echoed throughout the arena. As Cardin struggled to recover, Pyrrha turned her attention to Russell, whose tired gaze and labored breathing revealed his fatigue. The battle had been more grueling than Pyrrha had anticipated. Despite the excellent preparation of Naruto, who had trained the CRDL team to new limits of endurance and skill, Pyrrha felt reinvigorated by the challenge. It was the first time in a long time that she had felt such a level of excitement in combat. She watched as Russell's aura flashed red, a sign that the battle had come to an end. The professor, watching from a distance, couldn't help but express his admiration. Excellent work, Miss Nikos, he exclaimed, her voice ringing with pride. And I can't help but recognize the CRDL team, they have shown remarkable improvement. Congratulations to all of you. Cardin Winchester, still lying on the ground, managed to utter a few words of gratitude in a raspy voice. Good fight, he expressed, and with a gesture of respect and recognition, he raised his thumb toward Pira Nikos, his formidable opponent. The redhead, touching her chin with a smile, responded, Well done, Cardin. I must admit, that hit was hard. At that moment, Glinda Goodwitch was consulting her scroll, while Pyrrha watched her leader with a playful smile. We still have time for 2 more fights. Are there any volunteers? Glinda asked, looking up and scanning the room. Her gaze stopped at Blake Belladonna, who was engrossed in her reading, clearly distracted from class. Miss Belladonna, Glinda called, and a surprised Blake quickly hid her book and stood up. She seems to be a little distracted lately. What if? Glinda began, but was interrupted by a determined voice. I will do it. Glinda's attention was drawn to the owner of the voice, a young Haven student with his hand raised. Mercury Black, right. Very well. Let's find your opponent, he said while manipulating his scroll. But Mercury interrupted her. Actually, I want to face her, he pointed to Pyrrha. Miss Nikos just fought, Glinda replied with a frown. I know, but I've always wanted to measure myself against someone of Pyrrha Nikos' caliber, Mercury insisted. Glinda seemed reluctant, but Pyrrha intervened. In fact, Miss Goodwitch, I would be happy to accept this challenge, if you don't mind. Glinda watched her silently and finally nodded. Very well, Mr. Black. It appears that Miss Nikos has given her consent. Come on stage. With the stage set for the next confrontation, the tension in the air was palpable. The students murmured among themselves, speculating about the outcome of the upcoming match. Mercury Black, known for his skill and cunning in the arena, headed to the center with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. Pyrrha, for her part, remained composed, her posture revealing a calm that only true combat masters possess. Silence fell over the place as Glinda gave the signal to begin. Mercury advanced quickly, her movements fluid and precise, a deadly dance of attacks and feints. Pyrrha, however, was undeterred. With each of Mercury's attacks, she responded with an impenetrable defense and accurate counterattacks. The clash of metal against metal echoed in the arena, each blow a testament to the skill and power of both combatants. Naruto. 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 Pay attention, damn it. Kurama shouted, his voice resounding with an urgency that brooked no reply. I'm busy, Kurama, Naruto responded without taking his eyes off what was in front of him. What? Absorbed in the contemplation of a beautiful girl. By Kami, this is more important. The beast insisted, his tone laden with exasperation. Naruto sighed at Kurama's reprimand. Please, seriously, it's no big deal. How is it not a big deal? We just discovered that there is a ninja in this world, and it is very likely that it is that damned Sasuke Uchiha. Come on, Kurama, maybe he, like me, saw this as a new opportunity for a change of scenery. Maybe he has changed. Kurama was frankly surprised at such naivety. Sometimes Naruto was too cunning and sometimes too naive, but there was never a middle ground. Either he was a genius or a complete idiot, and because of Kami, Kurama felt like he was about to have an aneurysm. Are you kidding me? I'm serious, Naruto. Do you remember what happened the last time you let one of his crazy things go ahead? Yes, I know. He tried to kill me. I think the scar on my chest makes it pretty clear. And yet you're still sitting here. Naruto's carefree tone was pushing Kurama to the limit of his patience. I think you're exaggerating, Kurama. Really, shouted the nine-tailed fox. Don't you realize that it was a damn Uchiha who caused the death of your parents? And that a damn Uchiha was the one who controlled me? You have no idea how dangerous those idiots are. I'm warning you now. Go to Vale, find him and finish him off. If that's true, then I have even more reasons not to go to Vale. Sasuke has surely gotten stronger and I prefer to save myself trouble. Don't worry, we'll go after him, but first I want to master the Hiraishin no Jutsu to increase my chances of defeating him. You're a damned fool, I'm warning you. Your lack of action will bite you in the ass sooner or later. It's better to put an end to their ilk now that you can. Those idiots, if they're not crying over some love affair, they're looking for revenge or they simply want to destroy the world. I advise you to put an end to those crazy people now that you have the chance. You would be doing the world a favor. I surrender, Mercury declared, his voice ringing with a mix of resignation and mockery, stopping Pyrrha in her tracks, who was looking at him with eyes widened in surprise. Won't you make even the slightest effort? The red-haired warrior asked, her distrust tinged with disbelief, while Mercury breathed out a sigh full of amusement. For what? You are the undefeated warrior. The battle is already decided, Mercury apologized, his smile a polite painting painted with sarcasm, and Pyrrha responded with a disapproving frown. Next time, choose opponents equal to you, Glinda suggested with a voice that, although soft, was not lacking in firmness. The young man nodded with resignation, and the teacher sighed, her gaze lost on the parchment she was holding. We still have time for another confrontation. Any volunteers? She asked again, her voice floating over the expectant crowd. I am running as a candidate. I offer myself too. Exclaimed two voices in perfect synchronicity. They were John Arc and Naruto Uzumaki, whose gazes locked in unspoken challenge. Glinda, with a smile that bordered on complacent, nodded approvingly. Excellent, take your place on the battlefield. // Glinda, with a firm voice and indisputable authority, announced the start of the fight that everyone was waiting for. John Arc against Naruto Uzumaki. Begin, she exclaimed, and the air was filled with expectation. Neon, from his seat, could not contain his enthusiasm. Yes, come on John, prove yourself. He shouted, encouraging the combatant with youthful fervor. Nora, for her part, was not far behind. Naruto must win. It doesn't matter if John fought bears as a child. She exclaimed with a mocking laugh, causing John to blush up to his ears. I never fought with bears. He protested, but his voice was lost among Naruto's laughter. Naruto, stretching his muscles with the confidence of a seasoned warrior, looked at John. Today is the day, John. The day I will see what you are made of. Our training was just the prelude to this moment. Don't disappoint me, he said with a mixture of seriousness and expectation. John, with a smile that reflected his determination, gripped his sword firmly. He hit the ground twice, and the metallic sound echoed, marking the beginning of his challenge. Of course, Naruto. I've been looking forward to this moment. Don't hold back, he replied, his gaze locked on his friend's eyes, a silent challenge hanging between them. Naruto's smile was a mix of arrogance and amusement. Although he recognized the improvement in John, he didn't expect it to surprise him. With a casual gesture, he invited John to attack. In a fleeting instant, John closed the gap between them, invading Naruto's space. With lethal grace and colossal strength, he brought down his sword, pouring the soul of his being into that final blow. The audience, in collective suspense, watched. However, Naruto remained unfazed. With supernatural agility, he slid to the side, readying his katana for a blow that promised to be fatal. John, whose sword grazed the ground after his attack, tensed his body, sensing the edge of the katana getting dangerously close. Weiss, with her eyes closed and a smile of anticipation, murmured, "This is over." Yes, I expected more resistance, Yang added, believing in John's reputation as a warrior. But his words hung in the air when John, in an unexpected turn, composed himself and launched an upward counterattack, grazing Naruto's head and cutting off strands of his hair. Unbelievable, Yang exclaimed, her surprise evident. John's move, which seemed to be his downfall, turned into a surprise offensive, defying expectations. Flynn, with a sly smile, addressed the RWBY team. Did you think I would fall so easily? John is no ordinary swordsman. Naruto will have to try harder. The nine-tailed fox, with a mocking laugh, mocked Naruto. He almost caught you, huh, Naruto? Naruto, with a smile of recognition, nodded. It seems I underestimated John. I've been wrong before, but this is the first time I'm glad I am. With a calm breath, Naruto assumed an impeccable stance, ready for the next assault. John, his eyes wide with surprise, couldn't help but smile at the intensity of the combat. The battle had escalated. Naruto wasn't holding back anymore. The battle between them had intensified, each movement a symphony of action and reaction, a choreography of swords that told a story of friendship and competition. The clashes of steel resounded like drums of war, and each maneuver was another verse in the epic of their duel. On this battlefield, not only were his skills tested, but his legacy was also chiseled. Naruto unleashed a furious storm of thrusts, each one as swift as it was lethal, and John, with a grace that defied the fury of the wind, dodged each one, dancing on the edge of the blade. Both combatants displayed contrasting but equally effective styles, and their smiles were a reflection of a mutual respect born in the heat of the fight. Pyrrha watched, her expression of shock overshadowing any previous surprise. He had witnessed countless Naruto battles, but he had never seen anyone match his skill with a sword. Opponents usually fell before showing their worth, but John, this enigmatic warrior, stood his ground, matching the pace of combat. Although it was evident that Naruto was not using his full strength, John's skill was undeniably impressive. Glinda, with an analytical gaze, contemplated the confrontation between her most outstanding student and one of the young promises of the Atlas Academy. Wow, this is really impressive. It seems that the nickname, Immortal, is not mere bragging. James has discovered a true raw talent, someone who could reach the level of Miss Nico's and stand out among the best rookies. His swordsmanship is exceptional, I must admit that, he reflected internally. John, with surprising agility, avoided the blows that could have given Naruto a definitive victory. In a decisive instant, Naruto took the gun from him and pointed it at John, firing 3 bullets of fire dust. John, with his shield as a bastion, repelled the attack and, at that moment, they both distanced themselves, preparing for the next assault. John Arc, panting but smiling, showed signs of fatigue, while Naruto, with a calm smile, seemed to have not expended even an ounce of his energy. Naruto's laughter rose above the din of battle, a sound that reflected both surprise and admiration. Ha ha ha, I can't believe it, John, you really have improved a lot, she exclaimed, her voice filled with sincere amazement. John, with a smile that defied weariness, responded with a sparkle of joy in his voice, thank you. The scrolls you sent me have been my beacon in this storm of learning. They have sharpened my spirit as much as my sword. Now, the least I can do is give it my all. Naruto, with a smile that bordered on madness, proclaimed, very well, John. This is extremely entertaining. Now, you will see a little more of my effort. His eyes shone with the promise of an even greater challenge. John, confused for a moment, could only manage a, huh. Before Naruto raised his sword and charged towards him with a speed that defied his perception. For a second, John gaped, but his instinct saved him, raising his shield just in time to block Naruto's katana. The force of the impact knocked him back, but he stood his ground, his shield and sword extensions of his will. He, it'll take more than that to take me down, Uzumaki, John gasped, his voice shaking with the effort. Believe me, that's just the beginning, Naruto replied with a confident smile. With renewed vigor, John pushed forward, forcing Naruto back. He launched a thrust aimed at Naruto's shoulder blade, who dodged it with feline agility and responded with an attack aimed at John's neck. The clash of their weapons was a dialogue of steel, a conversation where each movement was a word, each stop a phrase. Naruto, with a skill born of countless battles, launched a kick in a left direction and hit John's shield, knocking it out of his hands. Without giving him time to recover, he followed up with a direct kick to John's chin, but before he could be thrown into the air, Naruto delivered another kick to his cheek. John hit the ground, and Naruto took a few steps back, keeping his balance. John stood up, his smile intact despite the dust and fatigue. Well, let's put more action into this, he said, his voice ringing with determination. Then, with a determined gesture, John pressed the handle of his sword and whispered, "Aperture gate." With the speed of a blink, John materialized in front of Naruto, who, surprised by the sudden appearance, recoiled from the unexpected strength of his opponent. Wow, he's gotten faster. Ruby exclaimed, her voice full of wonder and excitement. Penny, with a seriousness that contrasted with Ruby's excitement, nodded and said, it looks like he's started using it. Neon simply added a, yes, sharing the gravity of the moment. A nervous Flint expressed his concern. This has gotten serious. John really wants to win. Biome, Specialist Schnee won't be happy. Ren, confused by the tension emanating from Flint, asked, what are you talking about? Flint took a breath before explaining. John is a legend at Atlas Academy, everyone knows that, right? After receiving affirmative nods, he continued, it is no coincidence. He is a true prodigy. At first he was the weakest among us, but over time, his growth in strength, speed and skill has been exponential. Neon interrupted to add to what Flint was saying. There is something that John is strictly prohibited from using in combat classes, and it is not our decision. It was General James Ironwood who decreed it. Weiss, intrigued, raised an eyebrow and asked, and what is that? Flint replied. John calls it, the inner doors. No one really understands how it works, we just know that it amplifies John's abilities to the maximum. Blake's curiosity manifested itself in his skeptical voice as he asked, isn't that a semblance? Penny, with seriousness, intervened. We thought so initially, but no, it is not. This technique is something that can be learned. Ruby, with a look of innocent amazement, asked, really? Flint, with a grave warning tone, replied, yes, but I advise you not to try it. Weiss, whose curiosity had only grown, asked, and why shouldn't we? Flint, with a gravity that darkened his face, concluded, because the training necessary to master that technique is brutal, inhumanly brutal. I can't understand how John endured it, and sometimes I honestly wonder if he's really human. The conversation between John's companions revealed not only the deep respect and admiration they had for him, but also the enigma surrounding his formidable ability. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, the sword dance between John and Naruto continued, each movement a testament to his skill and determination. Yang, with an expression of theatrical surprise, exclaimed, wow. And who taught him such a technique? Neon, with a tone of revelation, said, that's the thing, no one taught him. The air was filled with a murmur of amazement at Neon's revelation. The idea that John had achieved such mastery on his own was something that defied everyone's understanding. //. With an agile leap, Naruto rose into the air, dodging a lethal slash aimed at his abdomen. In an instant, he released small smoke bombs towards the ground, enveloping the battlefield in impenetrable darkness. As he landed, a knife dangerously grazed his cheek, a warning of how close danger was. From the smoke screen, John emerged, carrying a strange device in his mouth. So you deduced that it was anesthetic. Admirable, John, Naruto thought, recognizing his opponent's cunning. The combatants charged at each other, their swords clashing with a crash that dispersed the smoke. Sparks flew from its blades in a frantic dance of steel. John, with a deft maneuver, deflected Naruto's sword and, turning around, pronounced, "Gate of Rest." The clash of swords was monumental, and Naruto, overcome by John's sudden surge of strength, was thrown into the air, rolling on the ground until his sword found refuge in the earth, stopping his inertia. Regaining his composure, Naruto launched himself into combat again, his blows gaining in strength and precision, matching John in the blink of an eye. The battle resumed with renewed intensity. Wow, that was impressive, Weiss exclaimed, standing up from her seat with her eyes shining with excitement. How is it possible? The fight between Naruto and John was a symphony of calculated movements and superhuman reflexes. Every clash of swords was a verse in his epic poem, every parry a stanza that told stories of skill and courage. The environment around them, a mere spectator, vibrated with the energy of their confrontation. Weiss, captivated by the scene, couldn't help but marvel at Naruto's ability to adapt and overcome each new challenge. It was as if each movement were a word in a poetic dialogue between warriors, where the only possible response was a stronger, faster, more cunning attack. The second door, I see. Please, no, Flint pleaded with a trembling voice, aware of the consequences it could entail. Please don't do it, John. With each clash of swords, a current of air was unleashed, shaking the room and causing the floor to crack under the intensity of their clash. In a moment of pause, both combatants separated, exchanging challenging glances adorned with confident smiles. John, panting and visibly exhausted, contrasted with Naruto, who, despite being slightly disheveled, seemed to be in top shape. The tension in the room was palpable, and everyone present waited expectantly for the next move. The surprise was general when John, in an unexpected gesture, lowered his sword and stabbed it into the ground. What the hell is he doing? Yang exclaimed, unable to understand John's action. Damn, Flint said, his voice tinged with concern. I must admit, John, Naruto said with a tone of respect, you have improved much more than I imagined. Thank you. But this isn't over yet, John responded, his tired smile not hiding the determination burning inside him. John took a deep inhale and, with an equally deep exhale, raised his hands slightly and bent his knees. His fists clenched tightly, and suddenly, the stage began to shake from the imminent release of power. Ha! John shouted, channeling all his energy. What the hell is happening? Weiss shouted, alarmed by the sudden transformation. John, Neon murmured, his voice a mix of awe and fear. The greenish energy enveloping John intensified, and the ground beneath his feet not only cracked, but also emitted a low hum, as if the earth itself anticipated the power that was about to be unleashed. John's skin, now a deep red, and his eyes, white as the full moon, were the prelude to a transformation that promised to be as profound as it was powerful. The class, a mosaic of emotions, watched with a mix of amazement and nervousness. The confrontation between Naruto and John had transcended the mere collision of physical forces, it had become a duel of unbreakable wills, a clash of warrior souls. Every movement, every defense, was a reflection of his resilience and determination. The stage around them, with every crack and every speck of dust suspended in the air, vibrated to the rhythm of their epic contest. Naruto, with a smile that radiated confidence, opened his eyes with determination and, in a symbolic gesture, stabbed his sword into the ground. His voice rang out firmly. Well, I don't want my katana to suffer unnecessary damage. This will be a battle of wills, a bare-knuckle fight. John, breathing hard, accepted the challenge with a shout that echoed in every corner of the place. So it will be. Third door, the door of life, open. Flint, overcome by the tension of the moment, sank into his seat, clutching at his hair in a desperate attempt to find calm in the midst of the chaos. His voice, full of anguish, rose above the murmur of the class. No, why do you have to do it, John? But Flint's concern was calmed by the comforting presence of Penny Polendina, who, with a reassuring smile and a nod of approval, assured him. Don't worry, friend Flint. John won't die.